Chapter 269. As Lai Meng Meng had said, the zombies in Escape were divided into three categories: minions, fatties, and the last category, Voldemort. Like in conventional zombie blockbusters, zombies lacked intelligence. The reason why Voldemort was ranked the highest in the game wasn't just because of its extremely fast movement speed. The most important thing was that Voldemort still retained some intelligence and knew how to judge danger. So the moment it met Wong Ling's gaze, the Voldemort's thoughts began to spin, and the scenes in its mind flashed past like a movie. It was often said that no matter what kind of creature it was, some beautiful things would flash before their eyes when they faced death, but this Voldemort very quickly came to its senses. At the same time, sweat poured out like a fountain, and it began to avert Wong Ling's gaze, whether intentionally or unintentionally. That was just a teenager who didn't seem to have any lethality, but intuition told Voldemort that this person was very dangerous and that it would die. In that instant, Voldemort felt a great sense of oppression. Every step Wong Ling took toward it made it feel an invisible pressure, as if an invisible force was strangling its throat. So in the next moment, Voldemort made a decision: hide in the cabinet. As for why it hid in the cabinet, because the game itself was designed this way. Apart from some traps in the game's plot, cabinets in the early stages of the game were basically safe zones. Thus, Voldemort felt very safe hiding in the cabinet. But very quickly, this Voldemort died. Lai Meng Meng didn't even see how it had died at all. He just saw Wong Ling open the cabinet from a distance of about 2 or 3 meters away. Wong Ling gently squeezed his palm, and with a bang, green blood directly burst out. Although Lai Meng Meng didn't understand exactly what had happened, he could basically tell that this was probably the legendary open cabinet kill, but it seemed like the plot was the other way around. According to the game's plot, shouldn't it be the zombies who open the cabinet? Open cabinet kill also had to follow the basic rules. After dealing with this Voldemort, Wong Ling gently placed his hands on Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's shoulders. In a flash, the after effects of not paying attention to replenishing his spirit energy, which had resulted in him using up too much spirit energy, instantly disappeared. "I've recovered." Fatty Luo clenched his fists and once again sighed in his heart at Wong Ling's strength. Although people in the circle had always called Wong Ling a perfected person, Fatty Luo had once doubted Wong Ling's true realm, or rather, his true strength, which was far from being as simple as a perfected person. In the habitual thinking of most cultivators, the level represented everything, but in fact, it was not. Every cultivator had their own latent source of power. This source of power would not normally be triggered, but it could often display great power at critical moments. Because of this, the cultivation world had always been full of all kinds of legends about people who could fight beyond their level. As for how great Wong Ling's potential source of power was, both Fatty Luo and Grenade Throwing felt that it was a mystery. Wong Ling looked ahead. The originally empty corridor was littered with broken corpses, and the walls were stained red with blood from the explosion. This scene was extremely impactful. Lai Meng Meng didn't know exactly what had happened, he only knew that he and Wong Ling seemed to have gotten into trouble together. However, this was a matter of the cultivation circle after all, and Lai Meng Meng felt that it was too far away from him. And no matter what happened, the most important thing now was that he couldn't leave. Lai Meng Meng frowned and looked a little worried. "Brother Song, just think of this as a game. Leave the rest to us," Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal comforted him on the side. Lai Meng Meng swallowed and his Adam's apple bobbed as he said, "We've taken care of this bunch of minions on the first floor. Let's go to that crazy woman's husband's ward first and see if there are any other clues." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Fatty Luo nodded, and under Lai Meng Meng's lead, they hurried to the second floor of the hospital. Lai Meng Meng was the only person who had played the demo version of this game. Although it was just a simplified version of the plot, the game map was the same, and he was relatively familiar with the environment. Along the way, Lai Meng Meng didn't know why his footsteps had become a lot lighter. When he walked, he felt as if there was a force supporting him under his feet. Even the feeling of stepping on the ground had become different. There was a kind of soft feeling. Furthermore, he realized that the puncture on the back of his hand, which had been pricked by the needle outside the hospital, had actually healed. In fact, this was the effect of the protective light membrane that Wang Ling had cast on him. Although Lai Mengmeng was wearing long johns, his head, hands and feet weren't protected. Wang Ling didn't know what other accidents might happen in this situation, so he simply wrapped a membrane around Lai Mengmeng. As long as this membrane wasn't pierced, there was no need to worry about Lai Mengmeng's safety at all. When they reached the top of the stairs to the second floor, Lai Mengmeng held the night vision camera and looked at the wall strangely. He noticed that there was something on the wall that looked like a pattern, but in the demo version, it had clearly been a white wall. I don't think I've seen this before. Lai Mengmeng pointed at the pattern. Fatty Luo also noticed it, and his eyes instantly narrowed. Because this pattern wasn't simple. Wang Ling took a closer look and saw that under the seemingly messy and disorderly arrangement, all the patterns had been arranged in an orderly fashion to form an array pattern. This was a complicated operation that could only be used when setting up a huge array. Wang Ling seemed to have already understood the trick of the game's illusion spell. After the USB drive had been linked to the computer, the powerful illusion spell that the other party had refracted through the computer screen was actually just a pretense. The real endpoint was the Taoist spell array that had been implanted in the game. This kind of array could turn an illusory world into an independent space. In other words, the game world they were currently in was actually a real space that had been transformed by an array. It was a little similar to a small world, but its spatial structure and nomological laws were simpler. Furthermore, through this array pattern, Wang Ling could already confirm Fatty Luo's previous guess. They weren't the only group that had been sucked into this game space. The space formed by this array was a parallel structure, and there were other people in the same environment but in a different space. Wang Ling gazed deeply at this array pattern, and Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing senior immortal were also lost in deep thought. Fatty Luo stretched out his hand and gently stroked it. He could clearly feel a bump on the surface. Chapter 270. Has Brother Luo seen this array before? Asked grenade-throwing senior immortal. Actually, he also felt that this array seemed a little familiar. There had been a similar photo on the news more than 10 years ago, but he couldn't recall it. Senior Immortal, do you remember the Heavenly God primary school incident from 12 years ago? Fatty Luo suddenly mentioned a key term. Next to him, Fatty Luo and Lai Mengmeng were suddenly enlightened. Only Wang Ling was stupefied. Heavenly God primary school incident? What was that? 12 years ago, he had only been 4 years old at the time, right? It was a major terrorist attack back then. A group of children were teleported to an old primary school building, and at the behest of the person who had cast the array, the children who had been caught in the illusion ended up killing each other inside. Fatty Luo frowned. The reason why I'm so sure this is the same array pattern that was captured in the news back then is because there's something similar between the incident back then and today's. The parents of the children who were killed back then were all weaponsmiths. Heavenly God Primary School was also a very famous training school for weaponsmiths back then. Sure enough, everything has to do with weaponsmiths. Grenade-throwing senior immortal sighed. Lai Mengmeng felt like he had heard something incredible. He remembered that he had only graduated from university a few years ago when the incident happened. But it seems that someone survived, right? There was indeed one person who survived the incident back then. She was the teacher of that group of children. But according to the police investigation, the teacher wasn't a suspect in the incident, and was also one of the victims, Fatty Luo said as he rubbed his chin. Then how did this teacher escape? I heard that the teacher made a sword out of mud on the spot, and with one slash she directly split open the space. But unfortunately, it took her too long to make the sword out of mud, and she wasn't able to save the children. Made a sword out of mud. Wang Ling's eyebrows twitched slightly as he suddenly recalled what Boss Tan had said about the little girl who had made the stone ghost mask out of mud. But could it be the same person? When they entered the second floor, Wang Ling could clearly feel that there were fewer random soldiers here than on the first floor. During the fierce battle on the first floor just now, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal Skybomb Grenade had probably attracted the minions on the second floor to the first floor, and they had been eliminated in passing. Although there were still 3 or 4 of them hiding in the dark on the second floor, they were nothing to be afraid of. On the way, Lai Meng held the night vision camera and curiously observed the surrounding scenery, afraid that he would leave behind a clue similar to the array pattern from before. Seeing Wang Ling walking silently at the front on his own, he suddenly turned around and asked Fatty Luo and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal curiously, "By the way, how do Brother Grenade-throwing and this fat uncle know our Ling Ling?" The corners of Fatty Luo's mouth twitched. "My full name is Luo Chuang. Also, I'm actually the same age as your brother Grenade-throwing." This time, it was Lai Mingming's mouth that twitched. Fatty Luo really looked too old. He had thought that the gap between cultivators and ordinary people was actually very big, but after careful observation, Lai Meng suddenly felt that this wasn't the case. Whether it was cultivators or ordinary people, there was always someone who looked like a parent, but was actually a student. Lai Meng suddenly recalled his youth when he had been at school. Sighing in his heart, Lai Meng corrected the way he addressed them before asking, then, "Brother Grenade-throwing and Brother Luo, how do you know our Ling Ling?" In Lai Mingming's opinion, Wang Ling was actually a rather cold and aloof person, the kind of person who didn't make friends very easily. Lai Meng remembered that when he had first entered the Wang family, he had taken the initiative to greet Wang Ling a few times, but Wang Ling had always had an expressionless expression on his face. It always reminded Lai Meng of those emotionless statues of gods that he had worshipped in the temple during the New Year. The expression on his face was exactly the same. "Do you know about a thing called a forum?" Speaking of his friendship with Wang Ling, it was before the chat group had been set up, when the cultivation forum had just been set up, and it actually took a long time to talk about it. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought for a bit. "I remember back then, when our forum was first set up, it was a big hit on the internet. Because some big shots would often come to the forum to hold online seminars, it attracted a lot of school students. After that, some schools specially bought the copyright for our online seminars and made them into handouts for students to use. Over time, there were a lot of advertisers who wanted to sponsor our forum and invest in it. Then, there was a small snack manufacturer who sold crispy noodle snacks." Oh. Lai Meng suddenly understood. When he heard this, or to be exact, when he heard the words, crispy noodle snacks, Lai Meng was already completely aware of what had happened. Senior Immortal and Brother Ling's friendship is naturally very deep, only met him recently. Fatty Luo looked at Lai Meng and chuckled. "By the way, what do you think of Brother Ling, Brother Song?" Lai Meng cupped his chin in his hand as he thought carefully. Then, covering his mouth, he whispered in Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's ear, "Actually, I've always felt that he's a pretty cool person on the inside. When I look for him online, he always sends me ellipses. Brother Grenade-throwing, don't you think that all cool people on the inside like to send ellipses?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal almost couldn't agree with this, and nodded repeatedly like a chicken pecking at rice. At that moment, the two of them reached a consensus. Just like Lai Meng had said, Grenade-throwing felt that chatting with Wang Ling was too much effort. Every time, he had to figure out Wang Ling's intentions from those ellipses. Apart from that, our Ling Ling is actually a pretty good kid. He's handsome, has long legs, and has a good brain. The key is that you only need to give him a few crispy noodle snacks to keep him alive. Raising Wang Ling at home saves both worry and money. The only bad thing about him is that you can't touch him carelessly, otherwise he might explode." Staring at Wang Ling's back, Lai Meng heaved a deep sigh. "If only Ling Ling was a cat, I would definitely hug and suck it every day." Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Fatty Luo. After Lai Mengmeng said this, the scene clearly fell into a dead silence. Roughly 2 minutes later, Grenade-throwing senior immortal copied Lai Mengmeng's action of covering his mouth just now and whispered in his ear, I'll tell you a secret. Lai Mengmeng. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Brother Ling might be quite far away from us, but at this distance, he can actually hear what we're saying. Looking in Wang Ling's direction, Lai Mengmeng abruptly realized that Wang Ling had actually quickened his pace. Chapter 271. There was a village between Jinghua City and Songhai City. After leaving Songhai City, Boss Tan's younger brother, Tan Qian, had headed straight for this place. The mountain behind the village was called Nine Boundaries Mountain, and there was a modern Taoist temple on it. This was actually one of Immortal Mansion's strongholds. Given Tan Qian's current rank, he had absolutely no idea where Immortal Mansion's headquarters was located. Only when he became the Eastern Branch's chief would he be able to find out the location of Immortal Mansion's headquarters during the high-level meeting that was held once every 10 years. 2 days after his return, Tan Qian used the bottle of sleeping pills that Grenade-throwing senior immortal had given him to perfectly suppress his Panwu immortal martial arts addiction. The Panwu immortal martial arts was a forbidden art that consumed a cultivator's essence, qi, and spirit, numbed the body, and stimulated the 9 orifices' spirit points to hypnotize themselves. The most difficult problem to solve was its addiction. Sure enough, as his big brother Tan Siming had said, although his strength had weakened a lot after he stopped cultivating the Panwu immortal martial arts, his mental state was clearly much better. That day, the sleeping pills wore off, and Tan Qian woke up from his deep sleep. When he returned to the backyard, he heard the Eastern Branch chief cursing in his room. Just as he stepped inside, he saw a large screen in the room. The Eastern Branch chief was sitting in front of it and working frantically on a controller. Tan Qian. You're here just in time. Quick, help me take a look. What on earth is the problem? Tan Qian stared at the screen in bewilderment. What's this? A moment later, his pupils abruptly dilated, because he actually saw Grenade-throwing senior immortal on the screen. Knowing that Tan Qian had come in, the chief didn't even turn his head. This is the first step in Master's master plan. Using the USB drive to secretly cast a great illusion spell in conjunction with a space array, we can gather all the currently known weaponsmiths together and find the strongest one. But because there are too many spaces, Master can't manage them all on his own, so we're in charge of this space now. We can use the controller to modify the settings of this space at will. Tan Qian understood. To put it bluntly, the current Eastern Branch chief was actually the god behind this space. It was very obvious that this was a big deal. Tan Qian's impression was that anything that involved Grenade-throwing senior immortal, this great death-courting senior, in the cultivation circle, definitely wasn't simple. The Eastern Branch chief pointed to a fat man on the screen. This time, our target is this person. The boss of Fatty Luo's metal tools, Luo Chuang, came from a family of blacksmiths and wasn't weak either. However, he had accidentally brought Great Death-courting Senior along when he was opening up the space. In order to test the strength of the owner of the villa that I asked you to investigate last time, I also sent a USB flash drive to that villa. Realization instantly dawned on Tan Qian. He knew that legendary Ling Jinren might also be involved in this matter. Although he had never seen this Ling Jinren in person, he had seen his spirit sword, which had almost turned him into a salt and pepper mantis shrimp with one slash. Even if Tan Qian hadn't seen Wang Ling's strength for himself, he had already had an idea at that time. This person was not simple. Tan Qian even felt that Ling Jinren was stronger than the master of Immortal Mansion. Tan Qian couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. So, what's the problem now, Chief? The Eastern Branch Chief's face was very black, and could completely be described as scorched earth. There's a popular game called PlayerUnknown's Battleground recently. Have you played it? Tan Qian. I have, but I'm a noob. Then, the Eastern Branch chief sank into deep thought. He cupped his chin in his hands and pondered for a long time before replying, I'm now controlling this space, and I feel like I've encountered an immortal who can suck people in, lock on, accelerate, and self-destruct. Tan Qian, Eastern Branch chief, not only were the minions I summoned in the space instantly killed by the other party, even the strengthened Voldemort I created were so scared that they turned around and ran. Tan Qian, Eastern Branch chief, furthermore, this group of people doesn't play according to the game's plot at all. They wreak havoc in the space without the slightest scruple. Tan Qian, was this done by that great death-courting senior? It was done by the person in that villa. The point is that I don't even know who he is. As he said this, the Eastern Branch chief switched the screen to Wang Ling, and then Tan Qian saw a huge mosaic on the screen. At that moment, the great shielding spell was once again put to good use. In the game space, Wang Ling couldn't help sneezing. He vaguely sensed that someone was talking about him behind his back. But now wasn't the time to care. According to the plot, Lai Mengmeng successfully led Wang Ling and the others to the ward where the woman's husband was staying. The array patterns that had been engraved on the wall on the first floor actually extended all the way here. Grenade-throwing senior immortal crouched down and stroked the array patterns as he carefully felt them out. Brother Ling, this set of array patterns seems a little different from the ones we've seen before. The minute difference between the array patterns was an indescribable feeling. Only cultivators who had cultivated for more than 1,000 years could clearly sense it. The array patterns of a large magic array were usually laid out in sections. They might look messy, but they also had a core. This is the core array pattern. Grenade-throwing senior immortal stared at the array pattern with a confident expression. As long as we cut off this core array pattern, we can at least block this great illusion spell and affect the order of the space. Who knows, we might be able to get out. But it won't be easy to cut off the array pattern. This is the core array pattern set up by an itinerant immortal, and they must have added a recovery property to it. It's best if we can directly cut it off at the root, otherwise it might grow back. Fatty Luo frowned. But we don't have any weapons with us right now. My magic treasures are all in the shop. Now that we're trapped in this space, the connection between our magic treasures has failed, and we can't directly summon them over. At that moment, both of them turned to look at Wang Ling at almost the same time. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Brother Ling, do you have a solution? Wang Ling nodded, his eyes fixed on the air. A moment later, there was a wave of energy that shook the air and the ground. Fatty Luo and Grenade-throwing senior immortal were extremely astonished. This momentum was really too great. It imperceptibly gave rise to a great sense of oppression. Furthermore, this aura was very familiar, and they already knew what was going to happen. In just a few seconds, a crack actually appeared in the air in front of Wang Ling's eyes, and endless sword chi poured out of it to sweep through the space. Chapter 272. The space shook violently, and dust fell from the ceiling. The familiar brownish-yellow sword light seeped out of the crack in the air and directly illuminated the entire space. In a normal situation, spirit swords were invisible to ordinary people, and Lai Mengmeng couldn't see them at all. But Jinka was very special, because it looked like a peachwood sword that could be found everywhere on the market to ward off evil spirits. Fatty Luo had just discovered this, and he was especially surprised. Lord Jinka. Jinka. The moment he saw Jinka appear, Fatty Luo's voice trembled. He was too excited and marveled at Wang Ling's ability. What kind of power was this to be able to tear open a crack in this completely isolated space and summon a spirit sword by force? Fatty Luo felt that this was already completely beyond his understanding. The moment Jinka was summoned, Grenade-throwing very tacitly tapped Lai Mingming's neck lightly and used an acupoint to directly knock him out. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to withstand the mental pressure of tearing open a crack in space to summon a spirit sword. This was no longer a physical attack that Long Johns or Long Johns could withstand. If Lai Meng was affected here, it was very likely that he would suffer from dementia in his later years. Too strong. When Fatty Luo saw Jinka firmly gripped in Wang Ling's hand as sword chi continued to erupt in the air, he felt his face tremble uncontrollably. This aura had come and gone very quickly. Fatty Luo felt that Jinka was really too cool, and that it was a perfect match for Ling Jinren. When Wang Ling held Jinka and their auras blended together, there was actually a feeling of being one with nature. This was a higher realm than being one with the sword. When will I be able to have a magic treasure as compatible as Lord Jinka and Ling Jinren's? Fatty Luo blinked, his heart full of envy. After all, this kind of thing could only be encountered by chance. He had collected and made a lot of magic treasures, but the problem of compatibility wasn't something that could be solved through simple forging. The compatibility between a spirit sword and its owner was a very profound subject. Fatty Luo felt that in layman's terms, it was like choosing a wife by looking at the 8 characters of the horoscope. After 10 breaths, the space was finally completely calm. Holding Jinka in his hand, Wang Ling aimed the blade at the array pattern on the ground. Just as he was about to slash down, the runes seemed to come to life and moved on their own. Not good, the formation spirit has been roused and is trying to escape. Fatty Luo instantly cried out. For a formation set up by an itinerant immortal like this, apart from the complicated formation patterns, it would most likely have an array spirit. In order to maintain the safety and stability of the array spirit would shift the position of the core array pattern every once in a while. But now, the array spirit had been awakened in advance. You want to destroy me? Not so easy. In this space, as long as I don't want to die, I can be indestructible. The formation spirit laughed proudly. This large array formation was not to be underestimated. It could carry illusions and multiple layers of parallel space. It belonged to the advanced array formation of the space flow. Of course, this array spirit was not an ordinary being. As soon as he finished speaking, the runes that were originally engraved in the room turned into a wandering dragon-like spirit that instantly floated up and fiercely rushed out of the door. It was as fast as a bolt of lightning, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Fatty Luo had no time to catch up. Wang Ling didn't look sideways, he merely frowned and directly stamped his foot down. Before the array spirit could break through the door, its body was accurately stepped on by Wang Ling. Wang Ling had only stepped on the last bit of the array pattern, which was like a small tail, but the array spirit was aghast to find that it actually couldn't move even half a step. Wang Ling's speed had already surpassed the array spirit's imagination, and the force of his stomp was like a nail that firmly pinned it to the ground. Brother Ling, to be able to operate such a large array, this array spirit is no ordinary creature. It would be great if we could capture it alive. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal suddenly said. The value of an itinerant immortal array spirit was simply immeasurable. Generally speaking, array flags and an array creator were needed to operate an array, and when the creator wasn't around, the array spirit could replace the creator. But subduing a powerful array spirit was as difficult as ascending to heaven. This was a product of nomological laws, and the principle was a little similar to that of a sword spirit. Since ancient times, there had been only a handful of arrays that could give birth to an array spirit on their own initiative. But it seemed that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had spoken a little too late. When Wang Ling had made his move, he hadn't intended to keep this array spirit at all. Wang Ling hated everything that disturbed his peaceful life. Whether it was the mastermind behind the scenes or the array spirit in front of him, it was all the same. So since he wanted to live a peaceful life, he didn't need to care about what would happen next. Whether this array spirit was strong or weak had nothing to do with Wang Ling. His original goal was to get everyone out of the space safely. Wang Ling raised his hand, and the spirit sword in his hand instantly lit up. This brown sword light lingered around Jinka's body. It wasn't bright, on the contrary, it could be said to be very gentle. But the oppressive feeling in that gentleness was very real. Fatty Luo only felt that Jinko was really at ease. Nothing could be more gentle than this. The erased spirit had a fearful expression on its face as it instinctively sensed the danger of this peachwood spirit sword. It hurriedly opened its mouth and begged bitterly, "Exalted immortal, please let me go. I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai." Wang Ling didn't even look at the erased spirit as he directly swung his sword down. The erased spirit didn't even have time to cry out as the sword light directly pierced its body. In the next moment, its ghostly body, along with the core array pattern hidden inside, cracked and shattered. Brother Ling, seeing this scene, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Fatty Luo couldn't help sucking in cold breaths. An erased spirit at itinerant immortal level had been cut down just like that. Furthermore, it had died after just one slash. This was probably what a big shot was like. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's heart ached. If he could subdue such a powerful erased spirit, it would definitely be a powerful little brother. But very quickly, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt relieved, because what Wang Ling had done wasn't wrong. He had always been this kind of person from the beginning. The erased spirit was destroyed, the core array pattern was destroyed, and the game space also started to crack inch by inch. Bits of sunlight seeped in through the dark space and shone on Wang Ling's face. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Fatty Luo stood on the side and looked at him. They didn't know if it was because the crisis had been resolved, but they felt that Wang Ling's serious face seemed a lot more at ease. Chapter 273. When Lai Mengmeng woke up, he found himself lying on Wang Ling's bed, while Wang Ling was sitting at the desk and seriously flipping through some study materials. What was going on? He remembered that he had been playing a game with Wang Ling just now. How had he fallen asleep? Lai Mengmeng got up and rubbed the space between his eyebrows, feeling a little headache coming on. Wang Ling was silent with his back to Lai Mengmeng. When he had left the game space, he had completely erased Lai Mengmeng's memory of it. Now, Lai Mengmeng's memory stopped at just before he had started playing the game. A scheme played by an itinerant immortal almighty had been severed by his sword, which would definitely involve a lot of things later on. As an ordinary person, Wang Ling didn't want to drag Lai Mengmeng into this. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. After a few seconds, Mother Wang pushed it open and came in with some fruit. She saw that Lai Mengmeng was awake. "Little Song, you're awake. I heard from Wang Ling just now that you suddenly fell asleep while playing the game with him." "I fell asleep?" Lai Mengmeng pointed at himself in disbelief. "That's right. Eat some fruit first. I made some chicken soup. You must drink some when you go downstairs later." Mother Wang sighed and frowned as she looked at Lai Mengmeng very seriously. Although it's not easy to do anything these days, and it has to burn the midnight oil with an author, young people should still pay more attention to their health. Nowadays, aren't there many young people who get sick from staying up late? Lai Mengmeng, Mother Wang, look, sometimes you young people like to get pimples when you stay up late. If you have a pimple, you'll have to squeeze it. After squeezing the pimple, if you're not careful, it will become infected. If you encounter an infectious disease, you might die. Some time ago, there was a young man who seemed to have died like this. Lai Mengmeng was so frightened that he touched his face. "Sis, where did you see this?" Mother Wang, Moments, the title even says that 99% of Huaxia people have read it. How can this be fake? Lai Mengmeng, Mother Wang, in short, you must pay attention to your rest in the future. If you're tired, don't force yourself. Lai Mengmeng said, "Sis is right. I'll definitely pay attention. Mother Wang, from today onwards, I'm going to make scientific plans and reasonable arrangements for you and that man of mine. You're going to be well nourished, and you're going to develop morally, intellectually, physically, and aesthetically. Lai Meng didn't dare refute her at all. He suddenly thought of that previous game. Sister, let me ask you something. Did you see the USB flash drive that Wang Ling collected earlier? Mother Wang pointed at the trash can at Wang Ling's feet. A USB drive. I threw it away. Ling Ling said you suddenly fainted, and when you fell to the ground, you directly hit the USB drive and broke it. Oh, my chicken soup. Nurse Wang said earnestly, looked at the watch in her hand, remembered that her chicken soup was still boiling downstairs, and hurriedly went downstairs. Lai Meng glanced at the completely shattered USB drive in the trash can. At once, his legs turned to jelly, and he knelt beside the bucket, tears streaming down his face. He felt his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys aching. What had he done? Looking at Lai Meng out of the corner of his eye, Wang Ling actually felt a little apologetic in his heart. Because this USB drive was deliberately stepped on by him, at the same time, there had just been an explosion at the Daoist temple on 9 Boundary Mountain between Jinghua and Songhai City. Billowing black smoke poured out of the Daoist temple's windows and doors. The Eastern Branch chief walked out of the Daoist temple with Tan Qian's help, F***K. What the hell happened just now? The Eastern Branch chief coughed violently, and black smoke spewed out of his mouth and nose. Based on the scene before the explosion, he had seen the pile of mosaics on the screen suddenly emit a brownish-yellow spirit light. Not long after that, there had been a loud boom in the room, and the entire screen had suddenly exploded. Only Tan Qian's heart was as clear as a mirror. Although he couldn't clearly see what was behind that pile of mosaics, he had seen that familiar spirit light before. With one glance, Tan Qian could tell that it was Lord Jinka who had come. Thus, the moment he saw the spirit light, Tan Qian already had a feeling in his heart, and very cleverly took a few steps back. Sure enough, not long after he stepped back, the screen in front of the chief suddenly exploded. After using a cleansing talisman on himself to wash the dirt off his body and face, the miserable Eastern Branch chief changed into a new set of clothes. Thinking of the explosion just now, the Eastern Branch chief still had some lingering fear in his heart. He could see that it wasn't a problem with the equipment, but something had gone wrong inside the space, which had affected the space and caused it to explode. Fortunately, he had the foundation of his realm and the protection of the Daoist robe. Apart from being a little dirty, there wasn't much of a problem. Of course, if it had been the instantaneous power of the explosion just now, everyone below the nascent soul stage would have died here. But what on earth had happened just now? To be able to destroy the space so quickly under the great magic array that Master had personally set up, the identity of the person who had destroyed the space was definitely not simple. Do you understand the situation? The Eastern Branch chief was puzzled, but even more shocked. Tan Qian nodded and replied, in addition to our Eastern Branch, the Southern, Western and Northern Branches' situations are similar. The screens in front of the 3 chiefs all exploded at the same time, all exploded. The Eastern Branch chief turned pale with shock. Yes, all exploded, Tan Qian replied. What on earth was this thing that could actually destroy all parallel spaces in an instant? The Eastern Branch chief felt a layer of goosebumps appear on his back. Did Master send any letters? Yes. Tan Qian handed over a piece of paper. This is a test report that Master just sent over using the 10,000-mile talisman. It records some of the fluctuations in the space before the explosion. The Eastern Branch chief took the report and carefully examined some of the data recorded on the test report. According to Master's speculation, the space should have been destroyed by some Dharma treasure, most likely a spirit sword-type Dharma treasure, which cut off the core array pattern and directly destroyed the array spirit, Tan Qian said. Sure enough, the Eastern Branch chief sighed. The data marked on the report are all Dharma treasures' combat power indexes estimated using modern precision instruments. The common combat power index of the lowest foundation establishment stage spirit sword is in the range of 1,000 to 5,000. If it's a golden core stage spirit sword, the combat power index will exceed 10,000, or even tens of thousands. Nascent soul and soul formation stage spirit swords will reach hundreds of thousands. And Master said to destroy this layer of space. This spirit sword is stronger than a soul formation stage spirit sword. It has to be at least a first-grade holy artifact. A first-grade holy artifact's combat power index is usually in the millions. Speaking up to this point, Tan Qian took a deep breath and pointed to the report. And the spirit sword that just destroyed this layer of space, the instrument calculated the combat power index at the bottom of the report. The Eastern Branch Chief looked in the direction Tan Qian was pointing. Chapter 274. Staring at the 9 question marks, the Eastern Branch Chief sank into deep thought for a long time. The Eastern Branch Chief, what's this? This is the monitoring data on the spirit sword, but according to Master, its combat strength has already exceeded the range of the instrument, said Tan Qian. Is that so? The Eastern Branch Chief frowned deeply. Just now, Master ordered us to thoroughly investigate leads on the spirit sword's owner. Investigate leads? Doesn't that give us a big advantage? The Eastern Branch Chief laughed cruelly. At the very least, we know that the owner of this spirit sword has something to do with the people living in that villa. Sure enough, I was right to send you, little Tan, to sound them out back then. My venerable self is so smart, ha 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 ha. Tan Qian sweated. Not necessarily, Chief. According to my investigation, the people living in that villa are a very ordinary family. I don't care. Apart from the USB drive sent to that fatty Luo's hardware store, this villa is the only game space we've been monitoring this time. Even if it has nothing to do with this family, it might be related to their relatives. This is the only lead we have right now. The Eastern Branch Chief directly waved his hand. This time, I'll investigate it myself. I'd rather kill everything by mistake than let one go. Tan Qian. Chief, are you really not going to think about it? As long as my venerable self gets the lead first and reports it to Master, I'll be promoted to an elder of Immortal Mansion soon. The Eastern Branch Chief looked at Tan Qian and patted him on the shoulder. Once I'm promoted to an elder, little Tan, you'll be the next Eastern Branch Chief. Tan Qian sighed deeply in his heart. He had to report this matter to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal first. It was June 26th on Sunday in the 9th week of the semester. In the morning, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal came to the door with freshly grown broccoli. The old man was bathing in the morning light as he watered the plants at the door with a smile on his face. Yesterday, he had specially gone to Fang Xing's family's noodle shop to compare notes on his cooking skills. The old man had always pursued a high level of culinary skill, and was naturally in a particularly good mood to meet someone who could compare notes with him. Just thinking about it made him happy. Good morning, old Senior Wang. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal greeted him respectfully. Yo! It's Xiaolei. Have you had breakfast? The old man raised the shower head in his hand and responded enthusiastically. I've already eaten, old Senior Wang. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal chuckled. Senior, you're smiling. What are you so happy about? Yesterday I went to Ling Ling's classmate's house. His family runs a noodle shop. Moreover, that classmate's father has some cooking skills, so I sparred with him for a bit. The old man stroked his beard and recalled seriously, I heard that his father became a special class chef at the age of 13. He usually covered his special class medal with a white cloth. When I went there yesterday, there was an acolyte standing next to his father. He went up and tore off the white cloth. I just saw the special chef's name shining brightly. Tisk, it's really amazing. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, by the way, why did Xiaolei come here today? The old man asked. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal bowed. I'm looking for Brother Ling. Is he here? It's the weekend, of course he's at home, the old man replied. But it seems that Ling Ling has locked himself in his room today and hasn't come out much. Brother Ling is in seclusion. Grenade throwing senior immortal sked, seclusion was usually either to consolidate a realm or to break through to another realm. To him, it was actually quite rare for Brother Ling to be in seclusion. Could it be that Brother Ling was going to break through again? But Grenade throwing senior immortal very quickly rejected this idea. He looked at Grandfather Wang and asked, Senior, do you know what happened to Brother Ling? He seems to be having a heart-to-heart talk with Jinka, Grandfather Wang replied. Grandfather Wang replied, there's always a day every month when Ling Ling locks himself up in his room like this to have a heart-to-heart talk with Jinka. Hearing this, Grenade throwing senior immortal's eyes suddenly widened, and he asked in horror, Brother Ling, can have a heart-to-heart talk? No wonder Grenade throwing senior immortal was so shocked. After all, Ling Jinren speaking was a rare and miraculous thing. In Grenade throwing senior immortal's eyes, the probability of this happening was like a sow climbing a tree. But the way Ling Ling has a heart-to-heart talk is very strange. He just holds Jinka and doesn't say anything. Speaking up to this point, the old man also had his own concerns. Ling Ling's father and mother have always been worried that Ling Ling might have a psychological problem. Little Lei, you have a lot of ideas. Do you have a way to find out what Ling Ling and little Jingzi are talking about? Grenade throwing senior immortal's face was instantly troubled. He hadn't had time to learn an advanced spell like the mind-reading ability yet. But very quickly, Grenade throwing senior immortal thought of a way. Old Senior Wang, wait, let me call my friend. Grenade throwing senior immortal took out his cell phone, and the signal directly crossed mountains and rivers to Little Black's border laboratory. Hello. Little Black. Can you lend me the mind-reading software you developed last time? Yes. I need it urgently. Can you send it directly to my cell phone? On the other end of the line, Little Black was clearly a little hesitant. But Brother Lei, this software is still in its trial phase. You mean, you can't use it? Grenade throwing senior immortal deliberately laughed. How is that possible? I meticulously developed this software, and it's connected to the mind-reading device in my lab remotely. As long as the software is there, it can read someone's mind and translate it. Little Black grit his teeth. Since Brother Lei wants to try it, I'll send it to you now. Roughly 2 minutes later, Grenade throwing senior immortal saw the phone screen light up. An unknown file had been remotely located by Little Black and sent to Grenade throwing senior immortal's cell phone. Grenade throwing senior immortal bared his white teeth and looked at Old Man Wang excitedly. Senior, I've done it. Let's go to Brother Ling's room and take a look. The old man was a little doubtful. Will it work? Grenade throwing senior immortal opened the software and aimed the phone at the old man. After the software did some monitoring, a string of words appeared on the interface. Ling Ling won't be angry, right? The old man took a look and was stupefied. It actually works. Of course. Grenade throwing senior immortal was full of confidence. The two of them went all the way up to the second floor to Wang Ling's room. It was completely silent inside. Grenade throwing senior immortal aimed the phone at the door. Because the door had detected 2 waves of energy fluctuations, the software had used the English code names A and B to separate the people inside. A stood for Wang Ling, while B stood for Jinka. The old man leaned over curiously. What does it say? Roughly a minute later, the analysis came out. There were 3 conversations in total. A. Wang Ling, B. Jinka, Wang Ling, B. Jinka, Wang Ling, B. Jinka. Old Man Wang, what are they talking about? Chapter 275. There were actually many ways to increase the rapport between a spirit sword and its sword spirit. In the past, when spirit beasts and demon beasts were rampant, many cultivators would choose to use their spirit swords to kill as many spirit beasts and demon beasts as possible in order to increase their rapport and proficiency. This was the most effective and fastest method among all the methods. But now, the demon beasts had been blocked by the gate between worlds, and spirit beasts had become protected animals in various countries. So modern cultivators had figured out a unique way to increase their rapport with a spirit sword. For example, Dharmaraja's most common method was to use the godly thunder inheritance to give his spirit sword a light massage therapy. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, for example, had been obsessed with studying the broccoli that Grandfather Wang had given him, and had been soaking his spirit sword in the broccoli field all day. In contrast, Wang Ling's method was very simple. His method was to hold Jinka in the palm of his hand. Wang Ling called this method the holding you in the palm of my heart, tacit understanding method. The name sounded old-fashioned and low-class, with a hint of the rural, non-mainstream Chinibu flavor. But Wang Ling felt that no matter how old-fashioned it was, it couldn't be more old-fashioned than the Golden Arches. Every month, Wang Ling would set aside one day to increase his rapport with Jinka, but it usually didn't take too long. After waiting downstairs for about an hour, Grenade-throwing saw Wang Ling come downstairs, and the first thing he did was mercilessly roll his eyes. This was a warning for Grenade-throwing's rude attempt to use the software to read his mind. This eye roll made Grenade-throwing's heart thump, and he sighed dejectedly in his heart. It looked like he could only offer up that treasured limited edition Shuang Wanglian flavored crispy noodle snack pack to make amends. Getting back to the point, the young man in white looked at Wang Ling solemnly and said, "Brother Ling, I'm here to retrieve the Demon King's arm that you mentioned last time." Wang Ling nodded. When Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had arrived at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa to chat with the old man, Wang Ling had already known the latter's purpose for this trip. The two of them arrived in the backyard one after the other. Loopy Toad was lying on the ground basking in the sun. When it saw little Master Ling, it very consciously moved away from its spot and wagged its tail as it chose to lie down at Wang Ling's feet again. Wang Ling opened his heavenly eye in the air and activated the power of world vision. At that moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal once again saw Wang Ling's pupils open like flower petals at close range. Because of the power of the heavenly eye, they were dyed a dark gold color. A moment later, as far as Wang Ling's eyes could see, spirit energy swirled up in a torrent, opening up a space like a vortex. Rumble, the white-clothed youth watched as a huge black shadow fell from the sky right in front of his feet. After that, even the ground caved in, unable to bear the enormous weight of the arm. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, this was the arm of a demon king, and furthermore, it was from the giant devil clan. Although he could already imagine how enormous it was, when he saw it with his own eyes, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still deeply frightened. This demon king's arms were so dense. If Immortal Toya hadn't personally told him about it, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal would never have thought that Wang Ling had used a door to snap them in half. Opening his heavenly eye, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly withdrew the enormous demon king's arm into his field of vision. Although the arm had been snapped off a long time ago, its demon chi was still very strong. It hadn't been long since it had been released, but the flowers and plants nearby were already showing signs of withering. Fortunately, the old man didn't take care of the flowers and plants in the back garden very often, otherwise Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal would have felt that he had suffered a huge loss by offending Old Man Wang. Even dozens of tons of broccoli wouldn't be able to save it. This demon king's arm has a lot of value in development and utilization. When I get back, I'll hold a meeting to study it properly. After accepting the demon king's arm, the white-clothed youth's heart was already more or less at ease. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal heaved a sigh of relief, but the expression on his face didn't relax in the slightest. Recalling what had happened in the game space yesterday, he turned to Wang Ling and asked, "Brother Ling, what do you think about what happened in that space yesterday?" In fact, even if grenade-throwing senior immortal didn't say anything, Wang Ling's heart was as clear as a mirror. He knew that this matter had something to do with Immortal Mansion. Resolving this matter wasn't as easy as he had imagined, but it wasn't complicated either. He just needed to cut the weeds and pull out the roots. At this thought, Wang Ling narrowed his eyes. He recalled that a lot of trouble had recently arisen because of Immortal Mansion. Wang Ling had always had zero tolerance for this sort of thing that ruined his peaceful life again and again. As a good friend of many years, grenade throwing was well aware of Wang Ling's attitude. He took a deep breath and looked at Wang Ling. Actually, Tan Qian gave me a clue earlier. Immortal Mansion's Eastern Branch Chief is about to make a move. No matter what Brother Ling thinks, I will definitely risk my life to accompany you to the end. Wang Ling gazed into the white-clothed youth's eyes, and his pupils couldn't help revealing a rare coldness. That evening, there was a faint tremor on East Wang Road in front of the Wang family's small villa. The ground shook, startling many birds into flight. A figure descended in front of the villa with an intense pressure. When the figure landed, the ground cracked open, and endless spirit light swirled around him to form an invisible shield of Gang Qi. It shook the ground so hard that it shattered, and even the air seemed to distort. It's here. The middle-aged man, surrounded by spirit light and supported by Gang Qi, smiled coldly. He stared at the Wang family's small villa with an unprecedented murderous intent. He had been the Eastern Branch Chief for a whole 100 years. Now, as long as he could gather intelligence on this family, his promotion to a senior elder of Immortal Mansion was just around the corner. The corners of the middle-aged man's mouth couldn't help curling up. He had been waiting for this day for far too long. This was his best chance to be promoted to a senior level in 100 years, and also his closest chance. He couldn't miss this opportunity. The middle-aged man's gaze was fixed on the villa's entrance, and his murderous intent permeated the Wang family's villa without any disguise. About 2 minutes later, the door to the Wang family's villa opened. But the door didn't fully open, and only opened a crack before it stopped. Chapter 276. This sword light was definitely the same brown spirit light that had appeared on the screen before the space had exploded. The Eastern Branch Chief suddenly realized. Sure enough, it was as Master had analyzed, that spirit sword was very unusual. It was an indescribable feeling that was hard to describe in words. Before the sword light even got close, a great oppressive force enveloped him from afar. After familiarizing himself with this light, the Eastern Branch Chief finally saw the body of the spirit sword in it. This was actually a peachwood sword. It was just a peachwood sword, so why did it have such abnormal data as 9 question marks? Judging from the sword chi, this sword did indeed seem very strong, but the middle-aged man felt that there was probably something wrong with the instrument used to detect the combat strength of a magic weapon. In any case, since Master has found you, I can only take you back first. The Eastern Branch Chief frowned as he stared at the dazzling sword gleam. He raised his hand and took out a few small flags. The flagpoles of these flags were as black as ink and were covered with fine veined patterns. They spread out in the wind and swiftly enlarged to surround him. In the blink of an eye, a wave of spatial energy formed, turning into a barrier that resisted the pressure. Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal were in the bedroom on the 2nd floor. Watching this scene from a distance, Wang Ling could tell at a glance that these flags were from ancient times at the very least, and were from the same era as the black dagger that the old devil had left behind. This immortal mansion actually has such a deep foundation? Grenade-throwing senior immortal couldn't help clicking his tongue and sighing. Because according to Tan Qian's report, the person who had come was just an Eastern Branch Chief, who at best played the role of an outer sect elder. And such an outer sect elder actually had an ancient artifact in his hand. Just how rich was this group of inner sect disciples? With the protection of the magic flags, the middle-aged man felt a lot less pressure. He couldn't control these ancient magic flags 100%, and the power they could exert was very limited. But in his opinion, this barrier made up of ancient magic flags, which were comparable to first-class holy weapons, was enough to block the invasion of this sword chi. Furthermore, the protection of the magic flags wasn't his only goal. His ultimate goal was to capture this spirit sword. In ancient times, the Dharma flags hovering around him were powerful artifacts that could suppress sword spirits by capturing sword chi. My magic flag has captured countless spiritual swords in ancient times. So what if you're strong? The Eastern Branch chief stared at the surging brown spirit light in front of him and sneered. With a flip of his palm, specks of divine waves appeared, and the Dharma flags around him instantly scattered in all directions. With the power of the Dharma flags, the flagpoles lined up in the void and turned into a huge cage. It's the spirit-suppressing flag. Grenade-throwing senior immortal exclaimed as he recognized the magic flags. Many famous spirit swords on the list of swords once fell victim to this magic weapon. I heard that the person who created these spirit-subduing flags has an unusual relationship with old Demon Han. Wang Ling opened his heavenly eye to the extreme and looked at the spirit-subduing flags. From what grenade-throwing senior immortal could remember, this was probably the first time he had seen Wang Ling's heavenly eye up close. The golden petals in those pupils seemed to be gathering boundless spirit power, which gave off an unreal sense of fear. He didn't dare look directly at it, and could only observe it out of the corner of his eye. Wang Ling frowned deeply as he stared at the spirit-subduing flags in the void. All the magic weapons from ancient times that had appeared in the world now had one thing in common: they had all lost their weapon spirits. It was precisely because they were masterless objects without weapon spirits that some cultivators nowadays use them. An ancient magic weapon with a weapon spirit would never be able to be operated by a soul formation cultivator. But through his heavenly eye, Wang Ling could see many strange nomological laws hovering around the spirit-subduing flags. Thus, this magic weapon was very strange to Wang Ling. He felt that someone was remotely controlling the artifact, and that the Eastern Branch chief might not be the true owner of the artifact. This was something that Wang Ling felt was a little strange. At that moment, the cage formed by the spirit-subduing flags had already enveloped Jinka. The middle-aged man looked ahead with a calm expression on his face as he quietly waited for the peachwood sword spirit to appear. A moment later, he saw the peachwood sword spirit light dissipate under the cage, and it gradually took on its original form. It was a child in a brown and white robe who looked to be only 10 years old, and was looking at him coldly with his fair little face. Looking up at the huge spirit-subduing flag cage, Jinka sighed. No, chat. He had thought that this was a magic weapon that could compete with him, which was why he had taken on its original form to personally experience it. But the reality was very disappointing. About 10 seconds later, this cage was like the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King's golden pagoda, which had captured demons. A purple light shone from below on Jinka's body. This was a special spirit light that could suppress most spirit sword spirits for a very short period of time. Illuminated by the purple spirit light, Jinka yawned and looked on indifferently. He didn't resist, and there wasn't the slightest ripple on his face. Success. Seeing that Jinka didn't move, the middle-aged man was overjoyed. The longer the purple light shone, the weaker the sword spirit would be. So he stood in the distance and watched as Jinka stood under the purple spirit light as if it were a microwave oven. 5 minutes later, that's enough time. The middle-aged man was overjoyed as he slowly walked in Jinka's direction, feeling as refreshed as when he had collected vegetables when he had played Happy Farm. He was just one step away from being promoted to a high level of Immortal Mansion. He approached Jinka, formed a magic seal with his hands, and finally raised them high. Withdraw. With a loud shout, he followed the purple light and saw the sword spirit in front of him being drawn back into the cage bit by bit. The huge cage in the air gradually shrank until it was the size of a palm and fell into the Eastern Branch chief's hands. Just like that, he succeeded. Holding the cage, the middle-aged man was overjoyed. Everything had gone too smoothly. The whole process was very quiet. Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal were in the study on the second floor, watching everything with indifferent expressions on their faces. Deliberately getting Jinka arrested had been part of Wang Ling's plan. Lord Jinka has truly been wronged. Grenade-throwing senior immortal put his hands on his hips as he watched the middle-aged man laugh like a 200-kilogram child as he walked away. Now, they just had to wait for this Eastern Branch chief to take Jinka to Immortal Mansion's headquarters. As soon as Wang Ling received Jinka's signal, grenade-throwing senior immortal and Wang Ling would directly attack. Now, we just have to wait for Lord Jinka's signal. When the time comes, we'll directly fight the nouveau riche. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said. Oh, that's right, Brother Ling. Just now, the brothers and sisters in the group and Fatty Luo all said that they want to participate in this operation. Wang Ling, ? Grenade-throwing senior immortal, it's common sense to call your brothers and sisters when you're fighting a nouveau riche. Wang Ling. Chapter 277. Normal spirit swords would start training after they were a certain distance away from their masters, but Jinka was different. Wang Ling could sense his aura from start to finish. This was the benefit of cultivating once a month to increase the rapport between spirit swords. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Wang Ling carefully sensed Jinka's aura. It was as if he had a radar in his head, and he knew exactly where Jinka was. Just over an hour later, grenade-throwing senior immortal saw Wang Ling open his eyes. How is it, Brother Ling? Any news? Using memory sketch, Wang Ling drew a map and marked a red dot on it. This is... Grenade-throwing senior immortal frowned. He hadn't expected Immortal Mansion's final stronghold to actually be in Winter City. Winter City's geographical location was relatively special. It was located in the extreme north of Huaxiu Nation, and happened to be the exact opposite of Little Black's border laboratory. They were on opposite ends of the map. The reason why Winter City was special was that ordinary people couldn't withstand the bitter cold there, and basically no ordinary people lived there. All kinds of magic treasure traders in the cultivation circle hated this place, because magic treasures would often freeze as soon as they were taken out of their pockets. There was no room for low-quality magic treasures in Winter City at all. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had speculated a lot about the possible locations of Immortal Mansion's headquarters, but he hadn't considered Winter City. Although Winter City's environment was very harsh, it was very suitable for cultivation, and a lot of Huaxiu's military cultivation troops were stationed there. Logically speaking, no dark force would dare make a move here. But grenade-throwing senior immortal had miscalculated. It's actually Winter City. The young man in white pursed his lips. He should have thought of it earlier. Although they knew the final location of Immortal Mansion's headquarters, getting there was a new problem. Winter City didn't have an airport, because there had been many accidents in which engines had been directly frozen, so the general way to get to Winter City was by bullet train. Can't we teleport? Loopy Toad, who had been lying on the ground, suddenly asked. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was astonished. When did Brother Toad learn to talk? Loopy Toad. I've always been able to talk. Then I'm really sorry, I thought Brother Ling was a boring person. Grenade-throwing senior immortal laughed. There are a lot of troops stationed in Winter City, so outsiders are closely monitored. Since Immortal Mansion's headquarters is there, it's likely that their top executives have hidden identities. We'll use our third-generation ID cards to take a bullet train. Going through the proper procedures is actually the safest way. If we let Brother Ling teleport us over, it'll be very awkward if the police come to check our IDs. Saying this, grenade-throwing senior immortal turned to look at Wang Ling. So, Brother Ling, have you decided? Wang Ling sighed and raised his head to look in the direction of Winter City. Listen to you. Without saying anything else, he looked at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and spoke telepathically. Come to think of it, Wang Ling suddenly remembered that he had never taken a bullet train in his life. June 26th was Monday in the 10th week of the semester. He left a clone behind to go to school on his behalf. Just as dawn broke, Wang Ling arrived at Songhai City train station. At this time, the breakfast stalls had just been set up and the pancake stalls were just warming up. Wang Ling stepped into the VIP waiting room reserved for cultivators. At this time, the number of people was still relatively sparse. If they waited for another hour, the number of people in the ordinary waiting hall outside would skyrocket. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had booked the train tickets to Winter City, and the departure time was 6:40. Wang Ling wasn't in the habit of being late, and preferred to arrive early. He looked down at the estimated time of arrival marked on the train ticket. It would take 3 hours to get to Winter City by bullet train, and after 3 hours, this dark force that had been harassing him would completely disappear from Middle-earth. Looking at the train ticket, Wang Ling sighed deeply. He just wanted to live an ordinary life. Why did they have to force him to act? While he was pondering this, Wang Ling's wristwatch phone rang. It was a call from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother Ling, are you already here? I just picked up Brother Luo, and I'm on my way to the station now. I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Ceilian Jinren from the group is also coming with us. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, Brother Tu isn't coming with us, he probably ran into some trouble. Brother Ling, see if you can help him later. Wang Ling had a puzzled expression on his face. It's like this, he has a fighting lion. It just so happens to be in heat recently. There was astonishment in Wang Ling's eyes. So, this fighting lion had, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Brother Ling, don't get the wrong idea. It just so happened that Brother to disturb this fighting lion when it was in heat yesterday, so it's biting his head now and won't come down no matter what. Wang Ling, about 5 minutes after grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hung up, Wang Ling saw a young man with his upper body covered in blood calmly walk into the VIP waiting hall with a fighting lion on his back. Just as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had said, this fighting lion had been biting Immortal Toya's head and wouldn't let go. Wang Ling. It wasn't just Wang Ling who saw this scene. Anyone who saw it would be extremely horrifying and shocking. The security personnel who followed Immortal Toya looked like they wanted to stop this kind of violation of the rules when pets were brought into the waiting hall, but they were too afraid to step forward. In the end, they could only raise a handheld loudspeaker from a distance and issue a warning. Sir, in front. Pets are not allowed in this waiting hall. Alarmed by the loudspeaker's shrill voice, the fighting lion glanced at the security personnel out of the corner of its eye. Their faces were instantly covered in fine beads of sweat, and they didn't dare speak at all. Each of them wanted to cry but had no tears. Mom, this fighting lion was a little scary. Hi, Senior Ling. The young man sensed Wang Ling's aura. He raised his hand and greeted Wang Ling from a distance. Wang Ling, knowing that Wang Ling was in front of him, it was as if Immortal Toya had found a life-saving straw. Senior Ling, do you have a way to help me get down? Wang Ling sighed and deliberately circled around to the back of the fighting lion as he slowly approached Immortal Toya. When he was behind the fighting lion, Wang Ling stretched out a finger and wrapped his aura around it as he poked the fighting lion's broad back. The originally agitated fighting lion was instantly so scared that its hair stood on end, and it jumped down from Immortal Toya's back. The fighting lion was so frightened by Wang Ling that it curled up and trembled on the ground. Thank you, Senior Ling. Finally able to breathe fresh air again, the young man felt as if he had been pardoned. He couldn't care less about the mess on his body. He squatted down and touched the lower half of the fighting lion's body. Finally, he sighed deeply. Now, not only is the heat over. I'm afraid there won't be a heat anymore. Chapter 278. After that, Immortal Toya made a call, and it wasn't long before Wang Ling heard the continuous roar of a helicopter in the sky outside the waiting hall. It was actually a helicopter. Furthermore, Wang Ling couldn't be more familiar with the logo on the helicopter. It was a helicopter from the 7-Star Special Forces. Back then, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had duped him into becoming an advisor. After the survival contest, General Yi hired me as an advisor to the 7-Star Special Forces. I never thought it would actually come in handy today. Immortal Toya raised his eyebrows as he stared at the sky, wondering if he could use this helicopter to send the fighting lion over. But I'm only borrowing this helicopter, so the fuel consumption is still on me. Based on the latest model of Spirit Core propulsion systems, using Spirit Cores as fuel costs 1 million HNY per minute. Hearing this, the corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched fiercely. Sure enough, you could really do whatever you wanted with money. The VIP waiting hall had its own dressing room. Immortal Toya used a cleansing talisman to wash the blood off his body. Senior Ling, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal might be here soon. Tell them to wait for me. Then, he strode toward the dressing room. Wang Ling looked at the clock hanging on the wall of the waiting hall. It was already past the 10 minutes that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had mentioned earlier. As far as Wang Ling knew, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wasn't in the habit of being late. Had something happened on the way? Wang Ling's mind was filled with wild and fanciful thoughts. He really couldn't be blamed for letting his imagination run wild, because his eyelids had started to twitch again. For some reason, he had a very bad feeling about this. About 2 minutes later, a group of people dressed in ancient clothes appeared at the entrance of the VIP waiting hall. Led by the young man in white in the middle, they slowly walked over. Wang Ling felt that it would be very appropriate to use Chaotic Superstars as background music at a time like this. Sitting in the waiting hall, Wang Ling immediately saw Dharmaraja, Fatty Luo, and the others. On the side was a girl whose figure was almost as good as the master of shadow streams. She was wearing a light pink dress and had an iconic lotus hairpin on her head. Wang Ling knew that this was most likely Cailianjinren. He didn't think that Cailianjinren had changed much since the gate between worlds had descended 6 years ago. The only difference was that her aura was more stable. Everyone in the chat group was using their own methods to cultivate diligently, and they were improving every day. But while Wang Ling recognized Cailianjinren, Cailianjinren didn't recognize him. In theory, this wasn't the first time they had met. Cailianjinren had met 10-year-old Wang Ling 6 years ago, and had given him a set of facial cleanser as soon as they met. Wang Ling still remembered it vividly. After entering the waiting hall, Cailianjinren immediately made a fuss and asked around, looking very excited. Senior Ling. Who was Senior Ling? Which one is Senior Ling? Not only had his appearance not changed, even his personality was as bold and unrestrained as it was 6 years ago. Wang Ling sighed in his heart and silently stood up from his seat. The latter immediately stopped screaming. Like most people's first impression of Wang Ling, Cailianjinren's first impression of him was that he was young and full of vitality, as well as the boundless vitality of a young man. How did he do this? This is Brother Ling. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stepped forward and hugged Wang Ling's shoulder as he introduced him. I never thought I'd see Senior Ling under these circumstances today. Nice to meet you. Cailianjinren shook Wang Ling's hand a little excitedly, looking like she was about to cry. Well, I was a little excited. I'm sorry. Senior Ling. The moment they shook hands, Wang Ling could clearly sense the injury in Cailianjinren's body. He had heard grenade-throwing Senior Immortal mention before that it was an injury she had sustained 300 years ago. Although it could heal, it was very slow. In her heyday, Cailianjinren had reached the level of a perfected being, but after that injury, her realm had fallen several levels. It was only after nearly 100 years that her injury had stabilized and she had begun to gradually recover. Even so, Cyliongenren's current level was about the same as Dharmaraja without the godly thunder inheritance. Just the few of us. Wang Ling raised his eyebrows and asked Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal telepathically. Including Brother 2, who's still in the changing room, there are 7 of us participating in the operation this time, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said with a smile. 7. Including himself, there were only 6 people present now. Wang Ling hadn't expected there to be a 7th brother. He started to have a bad feeling. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, I forgot to tell Brother Ling, I only recently passed the vetting process and plan to add this brother to the chat group. I've known him for a few years, and he went to the restroom when he entered the station just now. I think he'll be back soon. Brother Ling will definitely be very surprised to see him. As soon as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said this, then, Wang Ling instantly saw someone he absolutely didn't want to see right now. From a long distance away, Wang Ling could already see a pair of long legs in blue and white striped track pants. A sunny, fair-skinned teenager was walking toward him with a smile on his face. Fang Xing, why was he here? Wang Ling tried hard to hide his stunned expression. Hello, classmate Wang Ling. As they approached, Fang Xing was the first to speak as he tilted his head slightly and smiled at Wang Ling. In Wang Ling's view, this smile was very meaningful. Let me introduce you. This is Brother Fang Xing. He's a partner I met when I went out on a mission back then. Speaking up to this point, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal suddenly laughed. Actually, Brother Fang Xing has actually met Cyliongenren once before. Ah. Cyliongenren was puzzled. 6 years ago, when the gate between worlds first descended, a demon king descended from the sky. Do you still remember this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Cyliongenren looked like she was recalling something, and then immediately nodded. Oh. I remember that the Demon King directly landed on the head of a century-old crispy noodle snack flagship store. It even scared a 10-year-old Shota. Wang Ling, 3600 Spirit Creek Road, that's the address of that crispy noodle snack flagship store. Speaking up to this point, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal paused. And Brother Fang Xing's family's noodle shop is right next to this flagship store. When that Demon King descended back then, Brother Fang Xing could be said to be the first witness. Chapter 279. Sometimes, coincidences were such unintentional things. Of course, Wang Ling preferred to call these so-called coincidences ill-fated relationships. Judging from Fang Xing's behavior toward him, Wang Ling already guessed that this guy had most likely already recognized him. If what Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said was true and Fang Xing had been the first witness, then he must have seen Wang Ling kill the Demon King with one punch and Cyliongenren embrace him. But, he had still been a little Shota at that time. Furthermore, Wang Ling remembered that he had used some face-molding techniques to change his appearance moderately over the last few years. How could he recognize him? Wang Ling couldn't figure it out. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had thought that Wang Ling and Fang Xing would be very happy to meet, but he could clearly sense that something was clearly wrong with Wang Ling after seeing Fang Xing. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw this Linggenren's rarely expressionless face change to reveal a hint of awkwardness, and the latter took the initiative to move behind him to block Fang Xing's gaze. What was going on? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a little baffled. Fang Xing, on the other hand, stood next to Cyliongenren with a calm smile on his face. Cyliongenren looked at Fang Xing's face with an intoxicated look in her eyes. In her hometown, she felt that this child was very handsome. So 6 years ago, Brother Fang Xing was also there. Cyliongenren had a startled expression on her face. I've actually been looking for witnesses all these years. I never thought that classmate Fang Xing would actually be the first witness. Fang Xing scratched his head a little embarrassedly. Actually, on that day 6 years ago, our family's noodle shop was about to move. Just as we were about to finish moving, a toad fell from the sky. Everyone, wait. Dharmaraja asked, then why did Brother Fong Xing move back now? Fong Xing smiled. My dad said that toads attract wealth. Wherever a toad falls, there will definitely be rolling in wealth. Everyone, so after the government's post-disaster reconstruction work was completed, our family's noodle shop moved over. I only recently came to Shanghai City and transferred here to study, while also helping our family's noodle shop business, Fong Xing said. Everyone nodded. I see. Those who could join the chat group were, at the very least, clean when it came to their family backgrounds. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal's approval, the rest of the group naturally had nothing to say. If you have any more gossip, wait until we get in the car. From now on, Brother Fong Xing is our brother. Grenade throwing Senior Immortal put his hands on his hips and smiled with his white teeth. Also, let me tell you one more thing. Brother Fong Xing and Ling Jinren are currently studying at the same high school. Wang Ling didn't show any expression on his face when he said this, but everyone around him exclaimed in surprise. Fatty Luo, is it a trend to go to high school these days? Dharmaraja's eyes were clearly a little excited as he stared at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and asked, Senior Immortal, is Ling Jinren and Brother Fong Xing's school still lacking students? I also want to be a transfer student. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal laughed. The school probably doesn't want students who look too mature, right? That's right, that's right. Ceilian Jinren tidied up her appearance. If you want to find someone, you should find someone like me. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, I don't want an auntie with big breasts either. Ceilian Jinren, Wang Ling, everyone. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had booked the train tickets, they were numbered in the last 3 rows of the 4th carriage. Ceilian Jinren chose to sit alone in the first row, while Wang Ling directly chose to sit by the window in the last row, perfectly tucking himself into a corner. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had originally been sitting next to Wang Ling in the middle, but Wang Ling hadn't expected Fong Xing to ask to switch seats as soon as they got on the train. The two of them swapped seats, and then Wang Ling saw Fong Xing look at him with a bright expression on his face and smile very happily. Don't worry, classmate Wang Ling, I won't tell anyone about you. Fong Xing looked at Wang Ling and said telepathically. Wang Ling was stunned. He hadn't expected Fong Xing to actually know the mind-reading ability, which was a spell that even grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hadn't comprehended until now. Fong Xing felt that Wang Ling was an unstable factor. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had even thoroughly investigated his family background. But Wang Ling felt that he still needed to be on guard against this person, and his level was quite high. Sitting next to the two of them, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked a little embarrassed and felt that the atmosphere was unusually cold. As classmates, shouldn't they love each other? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal heaved a long sigh in his heart. No wonder there were cases of roommates being poisoned to death nowadays. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mind was filled with wild and fanciful thoughts. He couldn't imagine what it would be like if Wang Ling and Fong Xing got into the same university and were assigned to the same dormitory after graduating from high school. He felt that if these two people were together in the summer, they wouldn't even need to turn on the air conditioner, and wouldn't even need a fridge. The whole room would be an ice cave. So, in order to stop the atmosphere from becoming awkward, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly took the opportunity to smooth things over. Brother Fong Xing, what did you bring? He saw that Fong Xing hadn't come empty-handed this time, and was actually carrying a small backpack on his back. Actually, it's nothing. Fong Xing said, I'm sure the seniors in the group must have brought their own unique magic artifacts in case we need them in Winter City this time to fight the dark forces. I don't have any magic artifacts on me, so I won't show off in front of the seniors. This backpack is actually filled with food. Food? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled. Brother Tu has fasting pills on you. Even if you're hungry, you just need to eat one. No, my family's noodles are different from fasting pills. Not only can they help you break through, the most important thing is that they can quickly replenish your physical strength and spirit energy. Saying this, Fang Xing directly took out a wrapped noodle box from his backpack, which was unique to his family's noodle shop. When you eat noodles, you just need to inject spirit energy into the packaging, and it'll automatically heat up. Oh, that's right, apart from replenishing your physical strength and spirit energy, you can also quickly recover from external injuries. The corners of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mouth twitched. Wasn't this just King Senzu beans? In the front row, Dharmaraja was very interested in Fang Xing's introduction, and he turned around and said, "Brother Fang Xing, your things are pretty good. But eating noodles is a little troublesome. Do you have a simplified version?" "Yes." Saying this, Fang Xing directly took out a glittering golden packaging from his backpack. "This is our family's crispy noodle snack. You don't need to heat it up, you can eat it directly after opening the packaging." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, was it an illusion? He seemed to have seen Ling Jinren's throat move just now. "Brother Ling." Chapter 280. The truth was that even Wang Ling couldn't say for sure how this ill-fated relationship had developed. Of course, if he knew, it wouldn't be called ill-fated relationship. But now, as he silently nibbled on the crispy noodle snacks, Wang Ling knew very well that this ill-fated relationship had already begun to deepen. After eating the crispy noodle snack, the young man in white sucked his fingers and praised it profusely. "Brother Fang Xing, this crispy noodle snack tastes pretty good." In the front seats, Dharmaraja, Immortal Toya, Fatty Luo and Cilian Jinren all nodded in agreement. "Indeed, after eating the noodles, I feel like my body is filled with spirit energy." "Brother Fang Xing, did you add a lot of spirit herbs to your noodles?" Immortal Toya savored it carefully. "There are over 100 types of spirit herbs in this small bag." It wasn't easy to cover up the flavor of these spirit herbs while ensuring that the crispy noodle snacks taste good. "Senior, you flatter me." Fang Xing smiled. "I just applied what I learned at school to my family's noodle shop. These new varieties of instant noodles, including the crispy noodle snacks, are new products developed by our noodle shop, and we haven't officially sold them yet." "Ha ha ha, then aren't we the first people to eat crabs?" Dharmaraja laughed like a $200 child. As he laughed, he directly turned his head to look at Wang Ling. "By the way, what do you think, Ling Jinren?" Everyone knew that Ling Jinren didn't have any hobbies other than crispy noodle snacks. There was probably no one here who had a greater right to speak than Ling Jinren. Wang Ling had thought this would be a very simple question. However, he sank into a long silence. For some reason, whenever Wang Ling thought it was a simple question, he felt that things inexplicably became thorny when it came to Fang Xing. Wang Ling didn't dislike Fang Xing, but felt that this person was very troublesome. Initially, Wang Ling didn't want to answer Dharmaraja's question in order to maintain his cold and aloof image, but there was a good saying, and that was "you can't help it." Since he had already eaten, Wang Ling felt that nodding a little wouldn't hurt him. And so, after 2 long minutes of silence, Wang Ling stared at the glittering bag in his hand and nodded. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help skiing at this scene. "Brother Ling rarely praises people. Brother Fang Xing's product will definitely sell well. It's great that classmate Wang Ling likes it." Fang Xing gave his trademark sunny smile and looked at Wang Ling with a burning gaze. He noticed that Wang Ling had already turned his head to the window and was looking at the scenery outside. After that, there was a brief silence in the car. This time, they were going to Winter City to directly raze Immortal Mansion to the ground. This was actually a secret, and when they had set off, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others had instructed them not to mention it on the road, in case the walls had ears. Since Immortal Mansion was able to gain a foothold in Winter City, where the military was stationed, the number of spies and the shadows must be staggering. Apart from receiving customers, Fatty Luo was someone who didn't like to gossip too much. As for Immortal Toya, he was even more ascetic. As an alchemist, there were times when he would sit in front of his pill furnace for days and nights at a time. The train to Winter City only took 3 hours, but for this handsome man with an ancient style, it was like the blink of an eye. Seeing that they had dropped the subject, Cai simply started knitting a scarf in the car. Wang Ling had heard grenade-throwing senior immortal say before that Cai had knitted this scarf for her new boyfriend, thus, Dharmaraja had been stifled on the way. Unable to hold it in any longer, Dharmaraja decided to stir things up and ask some gossip. By the way, how on earth did grenade-throwing senior immortal and brother Fang Xing know each other? Senior immortal only said that you ran into brother Fang Xing when you were out on a mission. Actually, although grenade-throwing senior immortal had been introducing Fang Xing's current identity, most people in the chat group didn't know about his past. It could be said that Dharmaraja's question was also what Cai Jinren and Fatty Luo wanted to know. Furthermore, they were even more curious about Fang Xing's strength. Based on his current aura, Fang Xing wasn't weak, he was at the average level of the people here, or even above them. Actually, this question, because it involves brother Fang Xing's privacy, I wasn't going to say it at first. But brother Fang Xing specifically told me that if you ask me a question in person, I'll answer it. Grenade-throwing senior immortal crossed one leg over the other and looked like he was about to gossip, but then he realized that his legs weren't as long as Fang Xing's when he crossed them, so he quietly put them down again. Brother Fang Xing and I became close. To be exact, it was 3 years ago when he was still studying in Jinghua City. Classmate Fang was an adopted son of the Fang family, and was adopted by the Fang couple when he was very young. Later, because his grades were very good, Tianchi Imperial High School made an exception and recruited him. Do you remember that girl whose entire family was silenced 3 years ago? I once accepted a little girl's 1 yuan coin, and directly went to avenge her by slaughtering those evil forces. When that happened, it actually wasn't far from Tianchi Imperial High School. Grenade-throwing senior immortal recalled carefully. And it was during that incident that I happened to meet brother Fang Xing. By the time I wiped out those evil forces, it was already dark. Someone had called the police, and before they arrived on the scene, brother Fang Xing helped me clean up the aftermath and get rid of the bodies of those evil people. Back then, everyone had heard of the incident. This great death-courting senior had accepted a little girl's 1 yuan coin as a reward and wiped out the entire underground gang of evil forces in Jinghua City. At that time, it had caused an uproar in the cultivation circle. But no one had expected that Fang Xing would actually be left out of that incident back then. Dharmaraja was very satisfied with this gossip. So that's how it is. But now that Senior Immortal mentioned it, I seem to remember reading a related report in a small newspaper somewhere back then. It was said that Senior Immortal wasn't the only person who wiped out those evil forces in Jinghua City back then, there was also a girl. It's probably just a coincidence. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal chuckled. I did a very good job keeping that incident a secret back then. If I hadn't exposed brother Fang Xing, I don't think anyone would have known about it. As for the small package of paper from that place, it's probably just for attention. Maybe. Dharmaraja nodded skeptically, then turned to look at Wang Ling Jinren. What do you think? As soon as he said this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly covered Dharmaraja's mouth and made a shook gesture as he said in a very low voice, "You mustn't disturb Ling Jinren when he's studying, it's taboo." Everyone looked over and was stunned to find that while they had been discussing Fang Xing's background just now, Ling Jinren was actually holding a book called One Talisman One Seal Script and happily doing exercises for the Tao Talismans class. Chapter 281. No matter how strong Wang Ling was, he was still essentially a student, and since he was a student, he had to learn. Actually, Wang Ling felt a little guilty about leaving a clone to substitute for him in class. It was just like how a lot of people only did their homework on the last day of the summer or winter break. Although Wang Ling only needed to hand over his homework to that guy Pen, and he could finish it in a few minutes, powered by spirit energy, the bullet train traveled all the way to Winter City, and it only took a short 3 hours to cross thousands of li. As they approached Winter City, it was very obvious that the air around them quickly became colder, just as the rumors said. Wang Ling looked through the carriage and saw that a lot of cultivators had consciously put on more clothes for themselves. Unless one was at the Golden Course stage, it was a little hard to resist the cold in Winter City. In contrast, the 7 people in the chat group didn't get up or put on more clothes. It was a harmonious scene. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still wearing the long johns that Wang Ling had given him back then, so he wasn't afraid of the cold at all. Looking at the snow-covered scenery and the clear sky outside the bullet train, Wang Ling felt that his agitated mood had calmed down a lot. Burying his head in homework earlier had actually been a way for him to calm down. Tisk, it's almost minus 60 degrees outside, right? Some magic treasures aren't very resistant to the cold. In an environment like Winter City, I'm afraid they'll only be able to exert less than half their power. Fatty Luo looked out the window. Next to him, Dharmaraja looked at Fatty Luo's undershirt and baggy underpants and the palm leaf fan in his hand, and shivered. Brother Luo, can you put on some clothes? I wasn't cold at first, but now I'm cold because of you. This was Fatty Luo's trademark getup, undershirt, underpants and a palm leaf fan, just like the goggles that Dharmaraja always carried with him. None of your business. Fatty Luo automatically ignored Dharmaraja's opinion. My undershirt and underpants are very good at keeping warm. If Fatty Luo hadn't said it, no one would have believed that these undershirt and underpants were actually magic treasures, and rather high-grade Daoist robes at that. About 10 minutes later, the melodious voice of a female train attendant rang out in the train. Dear passengers, thank you for taking the Harmony spiritual-powered train. We are about to arrive at our final station, Winter City. Thank you for your support. We look forward to seeing you again. Have a pleasant journey. The 7 of them got off the bus and exited the station. At the exit, everyone was stopped and had their IDs checked. Everything played out as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had predicted. Although Winter City was where Huaxiu's cultivation army was stationed, there weren't any restrictions on ordinary people coming here. Although it was a little cold, the snowy scenery was still pretty good. Wang Ling heard that Little Black's Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong Cannon had been inspired by an ice sculpture in Winter City back then. The owners of the ice sculptures were a silver-haired uncle who loved to pick his nose and a girl with a bun hairstyle. Because he collected all kinds of magic treasure maps all year round, Fatty Luo had the honor of being the map navigator this time. Combined with the map of Winter City, which Wang Ling had memorized earlier, Fatty Luo could basically confirm the location of Immortal Mansion. It's at Sanyuan Road. I'm sure. In the rustling cold wind and fluttering snow, Fatty Luo sat on a bench in the square in front of the train station in just a pair of underpants as he confirmed the final location for everyone with a little excitement on his face. Lord Jinka. I'm here to find you. From his words, it was clear that this fangirl Fatty Luo was confident in Jinka. He had used the word find instead of save. In Fatty Luo's view, Jinka was already strong enough on his own. It wouldn't be strange if he directly destroyed Immortal Mansion. Wang Ling frowned slightly. There was no other reason than that he had a bad feeling. He recalled the prophetic dream that Loopy Toad had told him about before. In it, there was a fatty who had been tied to an iron pillar, and then had his heart pierced by a Taoist in red. Wang Ling had a vague feeling that if that fatty was among the 7 of them on this trip, it would be either Fatty Luo or Dharmaraja. Brother Ling, is there a problem? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked when he saw that Wang Ling's expression didn't look too good. Wang Ling hurriedly shook his head. Before Loopy Toad's prophetic dream was confirmed, Wang Ling felt that there was no need to cause panic at all. Then it's decided. Let's go to Sanyuan Road first and take a look, said grenade-throwing senior immortal. But how are we going to get there? Asked Salian Jinrin. Most of the 7 of them weren't familiar with Winter City. Only grenade-throwing senior immortal had come here a few times when he was out on a mission, but he still wasn't very familiar with Sanyuan Road. Should we rent an unlicensed car? I saw a lot of unlicensed car drivers scurrying about in the square just now. Fatty Luo smiled a little shiftily. Because he had been refining and collecting magic treasures all year round, Fatty Luo actually had a criminal record as a grave robber. Every time he went somewhere, he would rent an unlicensed car to take him straight to his destination, so he had always had a special feeling for the unlicensed car drivers. Brother Luo, hurry up and put away that bold idea of yours. It'll be very troublesome if we're caught renting an unlicensed car. Grenade-throwing senior immortal sighed. It's better to use DD Taxi for the 7 of us. But just as grenade-throwing senior immortal was about to open the app, a black commercial car approached them from a distance. A sky blue number plate. Everyone couldn't help frowning, because this number plate was specially used by the Winter City government. Wang Ling was puzzled when he suddenly received a call at that moment. He looked at the caller ID. It was actually Audjua. Staring at the commercial car with a government number plate as it approached and slowed down, Wang Ling's wristwatch vibrated for a few seconds before he finally picked up the call. Hello, Shifu. Just as he picked up the call, Audjua's excited voice was already on the other end of the line. Are you in Winter City now? Why didn't you tell your disciple before you went to Winter City? The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. Just as he was about to ask how Audjua had found out, Audjua had already answered first. Today, Warden Liang and I were checking on the work of the Master of Shadow Stream's younger sister, who was arrested last time. His network surveillance system immediately saw your entry record. Just swipe your 3rd-generation ID card and we'll know right away. Shifu, don't worry, even if I had 100 guts, I wouldn't be able to track you. Wang Ling, Audjua, the black commercial car in front of you was arranged by Warden Liang and a colleague from Winter City's municipal government. It's very inconvenient to move around in Winter City, so you can have them pick you up, no need to be polite. Wang Ling. Sure enough, disciples were all Shifu's sweet little cotton-padded jackets. After saying that, Audjua hung up the phone excitedly. In the office of Songhai First Prison, Warden Liang looked at Audjua a little strangely. Director Zhua, why are you so happy? Is your Shifu going to pass on his secret art to you? Oh, not really. Audjua shook his head first, then sighed. It's just that I've been too busy recently, and haven't seen Shifu in a long time. Now that we've talked on the phone, I feel a lot better. Director Zhua, I personally feel that there's something wrong with the relationship between you and your disciple. Warden Liang analyzed the situation. A master and disciple who haven't seen each other for a long time are like a long-distance couple. If they don't keep in touch normally, I'm afraid this relationship won't last long. It would have been better if Warden Liang hadn't said anything, but as soon as he said this, even Audjua panicked a little. He grabbed Warden Liang's hand excitedly. Brother, thank you for the reminder. Warden Liang, what are you doing? Audjua, buying tickets. To Winter City. To find my Shifu. Chapter 282. It could only be said that this was the horror of the spirit energy information era. Back then, many cultivators who went into seclusion would never have thought that the informatization of the cultivation world could develop to such an extent. As soon as they swiped their 3rd-generation ID cards, the systems of various places would immediately respond. The Skynet system in Warden Liang's prison was currently Huaxiu Nation's largest anti-crime super software, which automatically tracked down wanted criminals online and covered the entire country. In addition to being able to quickly capture suspects through facial features, the 3rd-generation ID card linkage was also one of its functions. It was just that this speed was a little beyond Wang Ling's imagination, and also subverted everyone's fixed impression of him. It had only been 5 minutes since they had gotten their IDs checked at the station, but Audhua had already received the news in Songhai City. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others all heard Audhua's voice on the phone, and soon after, they had reluctant expressions on their faces. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, after all this time, it turns out Little Joie sent this car. Little Joie, who's this? Fatty Luo asked. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Little Joie's full name is Audhua, and he's the director of the general administration of 100 schools in Songhai City. He's also our Ling Jinren's disciple. I'll introduce him to you next time. Oh, it's that Little Joie. Cailian Jinren, Fuwang, and the others suddenly realized. Everyone stood where they were. The government black commercial vehicle with the sky blue license plate was already slowly approaching. When it got close, the car steadily stopped. As the window rolled down, Wang Ling saw a young man of about 30 in the driver's seat. He was dressed in a suit and had a standard buzz cut. As soon as the car window rolled down, he greeted him with a smile. Is this teacher Wang Ling? The young man stared at Wang Ling. This was because Audhua knew that since the young man had never seen Wang Ling before, even if he gave him a photo, it would instantly turn into a mosaic. So he simply told the young man directly that Wang Ling was a very young-looking teenager with a poker face. Therefore, the young man recognized it with a single glance. Moreover, he was sure that he was not mistaken. Wang Ling, teacher, the corner of Wang Ling's mouth twitched again. When had he been addressed like this? My name is Xiao Kai. Teacher Zhua sent me to pick up seniors. The young man gave a simple self-introduction. Seniors, please get in the car. Feel free to let me know if you have any arrangements for the next 2 days. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal raised his eyebrows. When did Little Zhuo accept disciples? Zhao Kai smiled awkwardly. Actually, I'm the deputy director of Winter City's general administration of 100 schools. I just became Teacher Zhuo's disciple not long ago, so I wanted him to help me with my work. Oh, so he's a teacher at work, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately understood. If it was a cultivation Shifu, then Wang Ling would probably become a Shigong. If that was the case, this young man had really made a killing. In the car, Zhao Kai held the steering wheel firmly. He was a little nervous. Audhua had especially told him that the people coming to Winter City this time were all famous great seniors in the cultivation circle in Songhai City, and he couldn't afford to offend any of them. In particular, Ling Jinren, who looked the youngest and the most handsome, had a poker face and didn't like to talk, so they had to be especially respectful when facing him. Furthermore, Zhao Kai had also prepared crispy noodle snacks according to Audhua's instructions. They were in the car cabinet in the front passenger seat. But from beginning to end, he didn't have the courage to give the crispy noodle snacks to Wang Ling. Staring at the cabinet in the front passenger seat, Zhao Kai sighed in his heart. He looked in the rearview mirror and asked weakly, Seniors, where are we going? Do you know Sanyuan Road? Fatty Luo asked as he moved his head closer to the mirror. Sanyuan Road. Zhao Kai nodded. It's a road on the outskirts of Winter City, and it's very remote. But it's rich in spirit energy, and there used to be a lot of sect headquarters here, like White Dragon Taoist Temple, Money Dragon Sword Sect and so on. But as the cold air from the far north seeped into Winter City, the temperature dropped even more than before. Later, these sects all moved out, because Foundation establishment disciples in Winter City couldn't stand the cold at all. White Dragon Taoist Temple and Money Dragon Sword Sect. Hearing this, Wang Ling's heart stirred. It wasn't just him, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others next to him also had curious expressions on their faces. Of these two great sects, White Dragon Taoist Temple was famous for its 8 trigrams array, while Money Dragon Sword Sect was famous for its cloud-piercing sword technique. These two great sects didn't have a long history, but they were cradles for nurturing foundation establishment cultivators. Furthermore, they had branches all over the country, and their status was comparable to that of Lanxiang in the mining industry. Zhao Kai was a local of Winter City who had grown up here, so he had a good understanding of its culture and geography. It could be said that Shua had found the right person to pick up Wang Ling and the others this time. Seeing the curious expressions on the faces of the great seniors in the back of the car, he thought for a while, then continued, "Of course, outsiders say that the two great sects left Winter City because of environmental problems. Internally, there's another saying that the two great sects were forced to leave." Hearing this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's heart stirred, and he perked up. "Can you elaborate? Some people say that the two sect leaders received a huge sum of money and left. Others say that the two old sect leaders were coerced. But no matter what the rumors are, the situation isn't very good." Zhao Kai smiled bitterly. Actually, this wasn't a secret in Winter City, but most of it was hearsay, and he couldn't go into detail. However, Zhao Kai still told them everything he knew as they drove. The cause of this incident was the ancestral land occupied by the White Dragon Daoist Temple and the Money Dragon Sword sect on Sanyuan Road. The headquarters of these two sects were established here, just like McDonald's and KFC. Each of them occupied a spirit vein at the foot of Sanyuan Road. This spirit vein was currently a very scarce land resource in the country, but the two sects had each occupied half of it, and had been here since ancient times. Several times, senior officials from the Land Resource Bureau had gone to negotiate with them, but had returned empty-handed. But about 10 years ago, the two sects had moved away one after another. Although Zhao Kai didn't know how this had started, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that at least half of the cause and effect could be explained by Immortal Mansion. Then, who is the owner of this spirit vein on Sanyuan Road now? I don't know. In any case, it doesn't belong to the country or the two great sects now. I heard that the ancestral land of the two sects has been purchased, Zhao Kai said as he drove. How could I not know? Zhao Kai pursed his lips and said, well, the ownership of the spirit vein has always been a top secret. People who aren't at that level have no access to it. And the strangest thing is that there are no buildings on the spirit vein on Sanyuan Road. No buildings. Did he hide it? Chapter 283. The 7 people in the car weren't surprised by the complexity of Immortal Mansion. To be able to establish a foothold in Winter City, where the military was stationed and the security was strict, even ID checks had to go through the Skynet system. Even an idiot could tell how deep the waters behind this were. But the problem now was that Wang Ling could clearly sense that Jinko was on Sanyuan Road, but Victory Zhao said that there were no buildings on Sanyuan Road. What was going on? Could they have used some kind of invisible illusion spell, or built an underground palace? Cailian Jinren guessed. That's impossible. The leaders of the Land Resource Bureau aren't fools, they've already thought of everything the seniors can think of. After the two sects left one after another, that spirit vein inexplicably became a private property, but we can't get in touch with its owner. A few years ago, there were people waiting here every year, but since this year, no one has come, said Victory Zhao. Why? Because they've given up resisting. If we can't get in touch with the owner, there's no point in squatting here. Holding the steering wheel, Victory Zhao shrugged helplessly. From their conversation in the car, Victory Zhao could already vaguely guess what these seniors were going to do. It had to have something to do with the owner of the spirit vein. Furthermore, it was very obvious that this group of seniors had brought a map and marked the location. They had definitely come prepared. Because he had some understanding of the situation on Sanyuan Road, when he heard that these 7 people were going there, Victory Zhao's heart had thumped, and he had privately thought that this group of seniors had found the wrong location. But when he heard that it was Ling Jinren who had marked the coordinates on the map in the car, in the end, he could only shrink back and swallow his words. He couldn't defend any of the 7 seniors in the car, especially that Ling Jinren. This was something Director Zhua had emphasized repeatedly when he had called him earlier. In fact, even if Zhua hadn't emphasized it, Victory Zhao could feel the respect the other seniors in the car had for this Ling Jinren. Along the way, Victory Zhao pretended to glance at Wang Ling out of the corner of his eye through the rearview mirror in the car. Apart from marveling at how young this Ling Jinren was, he also started to feel a lot more curious about him. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was in the front passenger seat. After thinking for a bit, Victory Zhao asked very carefully, "Does Ling Jinren usually not like to talk?" After hearing this, Grenade-throwing senior immortal nodded very seriously. "Isn't there a saying that silence is golden? All sages like to think. Then, what is Ling Jinren thinking about?" On the way here just now, Ling Jinren was thinking about the exercises in one talisman and one seal script, and I'm guessing he's still thinking about his midterm exam. When Zhao Kai heard this, he could not help but sigh in his heart. The matter of the sage was really hard to fathom. Only now did he realize that the practice textbook of a talisman and a seal script was actually so useful. He seemed to have found the gap between himself and these great seniors. He could only blame himself for his lack of talent, for not being able to understand the secrets of heaven from this common high school practice textbook. After thinking for a while, Zhao Kai decided to change the topic. "Senior, we're about to reach the Sanyuan Road. It's just up ahead." So fast. Zhao Kai was familiar with the roads in Winter City. Moreover, he was using a commercial vehicle with a government license plate. He even used the green lane to pass through the toll station, so it was reasonable for him to be fast. The black commercial vehicle sped along the highway. When it passed a road sign, Grenade-throwing senior immortal took a look and, sure enough, saw that the intersection of Sanyuan Road was after the highway up ahead. "Just drop us off at the intersection, you can go back first. If I need your help, I definitely won't hesitate to contact you again." Grenade-throwing senior immortal bared his white teeth at Zhao Kai with his trademark smile. "Very well, senior, it just so happens that I also have something to deal with," said Zhao Kai. "What is it?" Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked casually. There's a perverted preschool teacher who mistreats young children in kindergarten. He actually squeezed half a tube of wasabi into a child's mouth. He's simply insane." Zhao Kai said a little indignantly. The city takes this very seriously, and unanimously voted to send this pervert to the Internet Addiction Center for electrotherapy. In the back seat, Dharmaraja thought for a bit, then gave Zhao Kai his business card. "Tell your city leaders that I'll give them a 10% discount for electrotherapy. I promise I'll electrocute this pervert until he's tender on the inside and crispy on the outside." Zhao Kai. 10 minutes later, they arrived at their destination. Zhao Kai stopped the car and pressed the automatic door button. The side door of the commercial vehicle opened, and everyone got out one after another. Because Wang Ling was sitting in the last row, he was the last to get out. Zhao Kai stared at the car cabinet in the front passenger seat and thought for a long time. In the end, before Wang Ling got out of the car, he plucked up the courage to open the cabinet, took out 2 packets of original flavor crispy noodle snacks, and stuffed them into Wang Ling's hands. "Ling Jinren, this is for you. Please accept it." Wang Ling was actually stupefied as he held the crispy noodle snacks. On the other hand, Grenade-throwing senior immortal laughed on the side and couldn't help patting Zhao Kai on the shoulder by the window. "Young man, you have a bright future ahead of you." For some reason, Zhao Kai felt overwhelmed by the favor. After watching Zhao Kai's commercial vehicle drive away, everyone calmed down and looked at the map again. "According to Ling Jinren's mark, this is the place," Fatty Luo said with absolute certainty as he held up the map in his hand in the chilly wind. But as Zhao Kai had said, this area around Sanyuan Road was basically a suburb. It was covered in snow and there wasn't even a tree to be seen. Thick snow had piled up on both sides of the road. Wang Ling looked along the road and saw that the snow was already more than 3 meters deep. Senior Immortal, can you tell what kind of camouflage spell this is? Fatty Luo looked at the empty street. Although he didn't see anything, he still felt that it was quite suspicious. But while they hadn't discovered anything yet, everyone could indeed sense the power of the spirit vein. This is indeed a rare cultivation paradise, as well as a land of good feng shui. Relying on the spirit vein, if a golden core cultivator goes into seclusion here, they won't have to worry about a lack of spirit energy at all, Dharmaraja said. On the side, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened his heavenly eye. After carefully observing their surroundings, he finally threw a grenade into the pile of snow in front of them. There was a loud bang, and a large amount of snow exploded in all directions. Senior Immortal, what are you doing? I was just wondering if this is some kind of illusion spell. The space created by an illusion spell isn't very stable, which I can tell with my sky bomb grenade. But it's very obvious that the space here is very stable. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed and looked at Wang Ling. Brother Ling, do you have any ideas? Wang Ling narrowed his eyes as he gazed at the snowy landscape in front of him. Naturally, he had sensed something. But before he could speak telepathically, Fang Xing had actually also sensed it. Cupping his chin in his hands, he walked up to the front, his long legs standing out in contrast to the white snow. The aura is here, but I can't see anything, so I rule out the possibility of an illusion spell. Combined with the spirit vein under our feet, I thought of a camouflage spell. Seniors, have you ever heard of a holy array that requires a spirit vein to work? Chapter 284. If it was the ice crystal array at work, then the current situation could be explained. This was a magic array that could replicate an area into a mirror space. After successfully replicating the area, everyone could hide in the replicated mirror space. It was perfect for hiding. However, the ice crystal array had a huge drawback, which was that it consumed a lot of spiritual power. Since the beginning of the holy array, there would always be a spiritual vein under the feet to make up for the large amount of spiritual power consumed during the operation of the array. But Lianjinren still had some doubts. But I remember that the previous owner of this ice crystal array was Immortal Shipai. Immortal Shipai's secret hideout back then had a spirit vein underneath it. He used the ice crystal array to create a mirror space so that when he was injured, he could escape into the space many times to recuperate. Lianjinren continued, but as far as I know, when Immortal Shipai was arrested back then, the holy array spirit of this ice crystal array was handed over to the state along with the spirit vein. Why would it appear in Immortal Mansion's hands now? Wang Ling also frowned, feeling that this was very strange. But looking at the current situation, Wang Ling was very sure that the camouflage in front of them was caused by the legendary ice crystal array. Because the mirror space created by the ice crystal array wasn't an illusion, it was very difficult to detect. Even the most sophisticated modern instruments might not be able to effectively detect the fluctuations. But this couldn't fool Wang Ling's eyes. When he had stepped onto Sanyuan Road, he had actually already made up his mind. But there was something else he was also puzzled about, and that was Fang Xing. He felt that Fang Xing was unusually sensitive to the ice crystal array. Just how rich are these people from Immortal Mansion? Dharmaraja couldn't help shuddering. This Immortal Mansion's foundation was a little scary, even something like a holy array had appeared. When Senior Immortal and I were trapped in an illusion game before, this bunch of people even brought out an itinerant Immortal Array spirit, so it's actually not strange that they have a holy array. Fatty Luo waved his palm leaf fan. He actually had the second half of what he wanted to say, although that itinerant Immortal Array spirit had been directly chopped to pieces by Ling Jinren's Lord Jinka's sword, but before he said the second half of the sentence, Fatty Luo thought it over carefully and finally kept silent. Because he had suddenly sensed a powerful wave of spirit energy erupting from Ling Jinren, who was next to him, he was so frightened that he didn't dare speak. This wave of spirit energy was mixed with powerful spirit pressure, and it continuously condensed with his heavenly eye as its center. The powerful energy caused the nearby snow to continuously melt, and spirit energy fluctuations rippled out from Wang Ling's pupils, causing even the ground to tremble. To break the mirror image of the ice crystal array, you'll need to gather a tremendous amount of spirit energy. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others took the initiative to move away from Wang Ling. This spiritual pressure was so immense that even standing next to Wang Ling made it hard to breathe. As expected, Ling Jinren's strength was terrifying. Dharmaraja was utterly shaken. He saw that Wang Ling's entire body was trembling slightly because of this immense spirit energy, and the air seemed to distort. If someone didn't know better, they would definitely think that Wang Ling was angry. Fatty Luo felt that this scene was familiar, and he nudged Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal next to him with his elbow and asked, "Senior Immortal, do you feel like you've seen this trembling and inexplicable pressure before?" "Where have you seen it before, I think so." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded. "Have you seen the TV series Shao Family Compound? The Shao clan invested in it." "No." "Let's go take a look." When the main character yells out the phrase, "The river flows east for 30 years, the river flows west for 30 years," and clamors to break off the engagement, the tension in his emotions and the cries in his heart are very similar to what Brother Ling is feeling right now. This spirit energy had been condensing for a long time, and even Wang Ling felt that the energy accumulated in his heavenly eye was simply like the power of prehistoric times. "Everyone, be careful." Behind him, the faces of the others couldn't help turning serious as they set up magic barriers one after another. About 5 seconds later, everyone saw Ling Jinren's heavenly eye abruptly shoot out 2 beams of light as thick as horned dragons. They directly hit the space in front of them, and as if they were going to break through the dimensional wall, they crashed into something with a loud bang. If Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had to describe it, the impact of this scene was like the first time he had seen the destructive light of a tyrant carp dragon. Almost at the same instant that the all-seeing cannon struck the invisible spatial wall, everyone could vaguely see that cracks had already appeared in the void. "Is it going to break?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal narrowed his eyes as the light around them gradually dimmed along with the intense beams of light. There was a burning smell. Everyone realized that a hole the size of a person had actually been burned open in the originally invisible spatial wall. Fatty Luo and Dharmaraja's jaws dropped. They had thought that Ling Jinren was just trying, and had never expected him to actually be able to break the spatial wall. This was a mirror space replicated by a holy array, and the spatial wall was invisible. To break it open, one had to gather enough spirit energy to find a crack in the spatial wall, and then think of a way to break through it. Putting aside the problem of gathering spirit energy, it was impossible for an ordinary person to find a crack in the spatial wall. It could be said that Ling Jinren's strength had once again surpassed everyone's understanding. It was already very difficult to find a spatial wall, but he could actually burn it open. This kind of shock was no less than when Immortal Toya had seen Wang Ling close the gate between worlds with just one hand back then. "So, Brother Ling, does this move of yours have a name?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Wang Ling shook his head. This was just an energy beam that was naturally fired after the heavenly eye had gathered its spirit energy to its highest form. The difficulty lay in controlling the accumulation of energy. Only by concentrating a high density of spirit energy molecules into one point could it unleash its greatest power. Of course, there was a major condition for this move, and that was that only those with sage bodies could use it. Otherwise, when the energy beam was halfway done, their eyeballs might explode first. Why don't you give it a name for such a powerful move? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Fatty Luo, Melancholic Sorrow Cannon. Immortal Toya, the Demon Eye of Death. Ling Jinren, who gets pregnant with its glare. Fang Xing, Life Form Disintegration Ray. Wang Ling, not bad, anything else? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded. Is there anything that's a little more concise and domineering? The two energy beams that Brother Ling shot out of his eyes just now, didn't you feel anything at all? At that moment, Dharmaraja rubbed his chin and scratched his head before smiling a little wretchedly. I've thought of one. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, let's hear it. Dharmaraja, double. Long. Enter. Whole. Everyone. Chapter 285. Everyone was instantly stupefied by Dharmaraja's sudden obscenity. Even Silyanjanran, a veteran female driver who had galloped through the cultivation circle for many years, couldn't help trembling slightly. It could be seen that this obscenity had already surpassed the limits of what a human being could bear. Even soul formation cultivators were horrified and trembling. Double Long entering cave. What kind of operation was this? Why is everyone so stunned? Is it because I didn't come up with a good name? Dharmaraja spread his hands helplessly. They were all adult cultivators. It didn't matter if their words were a little dirty. Actually, I have something even more domineering. Do you want to hear it? Shut up, old thief. Before Wang Ling and Fang Xing could say anything, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others had already shouted in unison. Fang Xing, Wang Ling. At that moment, the space wall had already been blasted open by the Heavenly Eye's energy beam. The hole was more than a meter in radius and was big enough for a person to pass through. It burned open on all four sides of the space wall, releasing an unpleasant charred smell. Wang Ling frowned slightly as he stared at the cave. He had thought that his blast just now should have been able to completely shatter this space wall, but he hadn't expected it to only blast open a hole the size of a person. Although this was already incredible enough in the eyes of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the others, Wang Ling still didn't think it was enough. The enemies he encountered now were really getting more and more difficult to deal with. Sighing in his heart, he subconsciously reached out to touch the Dao Talisman seal tied to his right arm. He didn't know whether the day would come when he would have to remove the talisman seal, but in his heart, he hoped that it would never happen. Let's go in. It wasn't easy for Brother Ling to burn open a hole like this. But everyone, stay vigilant, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said after deep thought as he looked at the invisible but distinct barrier in front of them. After all, this ice crystal array was a holy array, which was of a higher level than the 5 elements great array which had sealed the old devil back then. Furthermore, the array spirit most likely had an automatic protection mechanism. Once an intruder stepped into this space, it was highly likely that the power of the array would scatter them in the air. In fact, it was just as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had expected. Wang Ling was the first to step into the space. The scene in front of him rapidly changed as the space twisted and the mirror turned upside down. In the distance, Wang Ling saw that the road sign for Sanyuan Road had turned into Lu Yuan San. When he stepped on the ground again, he confirmed that he was in the mirror space set up by the ice crystal array. A white-clothed young man landed steadily in front of him. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal happened to be in the same space as Wang Ling looking at the scene in front of him. His face was full of astonishment, and he couldn't help exclaiming, "Holy shit." At this moment, the originally empty Sanyuan Road was filled with all kinds of dazzling palaces. Some of them were even floating in the air like immortal residences. Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal could already see dozens of sky palaces as well as a large number of cultivation facilities on the side of the road. The materials of these buildings were not simple. Even the bricks and tiles were filled with a large amount of spirit energy and had the ability to regenerate themselves. They were not ordinary items. This immortal talisman is really King Rich. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't help cursing in his heart. Anyone would be envious of this kind of foundation. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought of a story. In ancient times, a poor man had fallen into a valley. After surviving, he discovered the golden village at the bottom of the valley. From the stone tablet at the village entrance to the building tiles inside, even the straw piled up in each family's backyard was made of gold. Now, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt like he had fallen into the Golden Village. Because this was the mirror world, everything here was inverted, even the direction of the clouds in the sky was different. It was only time that was synchronized with the outside world. The white-clothed young man looked up at the sky. It was already dusk, and the sky was about to turn dark. But what was strange was that the sky at that moment was actually dotted with stars, like a river of stars covering the entire horizon. The white-clothed young man pointed at the sky. "Brother Ling, look, the stars." Wang Ling, but it wasn't long before the white-clothed young man's hand weakly lowered. Because he noticed that these stars seemed to be growing larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. Was it an illusion? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath. Then, he opened his eyes again. The stars, which had been the size of sesame seeds earlier, had actually become the size of millstones. What *T stars? These were F*King spirits activated by the Holy Array. It was only when these shining stars drew near that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal realized what they were. They were transparent spirits that looked like souls, but their bodies shone with light. As these guardian spirits fell from the sky, they swiftly gathered together and finally transformed into a huge spirit beast which directly landed in front of Wang Ling and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. It was a two-headed fish with 2 feet and a mouth filled with sharp teeth. As soon as it landed on the ground, it began to roar crazily. There were 2 very long dragon whiskers at the side of its mouth that fluttered in the wind, giving off a domineering aura. The corner of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mouth twitched. This guardian spirit was definitely from the Pisces constellation, right? Alright, now wasn't the time to think about this. Without saying anything else, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal directly threw a sky-bomb grenade into the big fish's mouth. There was a loud bang, but the big fish was completely fine. It just clumsily opened its mouth to spit out thick smoke from the sky-bomb grenade. This is at least an itinerant Immortal level array guardian spirit. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned with a serious expression. After all, this mirror space was a product of the Holy Array, so it was very normal for an itinerant Immortal level array guardian spirit to appear. Furthermore, the most troublesome thing about these guardian spirits was that they had thick skin and strong self-healing abilities. If you couldn't kill them with one punch, there really wasn't anything you could do. Roar! The two-headed fish roared loudly. Its body glittered with starlight, and each of the spirits that made up its body radiated light. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the big fish with a helpless expression. In the end, he could only turn to Wang Ling for help. "Brother Ling, can you sing Twinkle Little Star?" Wang Ling stared at the big fish for 3 seconds. He sighed. Then, he took a slight step forward and leapt up. His palm was like a spirit knife as he chopped down at the starlight fish. Rip, there was nothing to block this slash. At that moment, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal clearly heard an earth-shattering tearing sound. A second ago, the big starlight fish that was still roaring, now, it had become a steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers. Chapter 286. At the same time, there was a secret underground palace beneath the palaces that stretched along Sanyuan Road. In the underground palace, a Taoist in red held a silver longsword. Starlight danced on the sword, and a miniature version of the 12 stars array was laid out on the blade. The Taoist in red pointed at the sword, and his fingertips slid along the 12 stars array one by one. When his fingers slid to the constellation Pisces, there was a loud bang, and the light of the entire array quickly dimmed. The Taoist in red frowned slightly. It seems that the ones who invaded Immortal Mansion this time are indeed hard to deal with. I just saw the guardian spirit of the 12 stars palaces I set up. The guardian spirit of the constellation Pisces died in battle, and its two heads were split in half. On the side, the eastern branch chief holding the cage was startled. These people actually found this place. Otherwise, do you think it's so easy to catch this sword? This is a strategy of loosening the reins only to grasp them better. The goal is to confirm Immortal Mansion's final stronghold. The Taoist in red chuckled. The eastern branch chief turned pale with fright. Then what should we do now? It doesn't matter. The Taoist in red waved his hand and stared at the cage in the eastern branch chief's hand. Since they've come knocking, we'll just clean them up. It will also save me the trouble of erasing the connection between this spirit sword and its original owner. As long as its owner dies, this sword will become ownerless. If I may be so bold as to ask, Master, do you have the confidence to deal with this group of people? Asked the Eastern Branch Chief. They're just a bunch of ants. The Master of Immortal Mansion chuckled and raised the star sword in his hand. They'll have to expend a lot of energy and spirit energy just to deal with my 12 Stars Palace's array guardian spirit. The guardian spirit of the constellation Pisces is clumsy and the weakest. I don't believe that the other guardian spirits will be so easy to deal with. As soon as he said that, the star sword exploded again. Bang bang bang, bang bang bang, bang 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 bang, bang 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 bang. The Taoist in red was stupefied by the 11 explosions in a row. Then, the Taoist in red saw that the starlight on the entire star sword was extinguished in an instant. The Taoist in red, the Eastern Branch Chief, Master, what's going on? The Taoist in red said, it's almost the new year. I'll set off some firecrackers for you in advance, the Eastern Branch Chief. Master, who are you trying to fool? There are still 6 months until the first day of the new year. The Taoist in red, the scene fell into an awkward silence. 10 seconds later, the red-clothed Taoist narrowed his eyes. Pass down my order. The entire immortal abode is to be on high alert. Once suspicious people are seen, they are to be eliminated on the spot. There will be no mercy. There were times when grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that following Wang Ling around was actually quite a boring thing. This was like taking a selfie. Most people wouldn't take a selfie with someone who was more good-looking than them. It would be best if they could set off the other person. And now, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that he was the perfect foil for Wang Ling. In less than 5 minutes, the guardian spirits of the 12-star palaces had been completely annihilated. As soon as the spirit bodies that had gathered in the air formed the array guardian spirits on the ground, Wang Ling smashed them to pieces with one punch. Among the guardian spirits of the 12-star palaces, the one who had it the worst was none other than Virgo. When Virgo's guardian spirit had rushed down, it had taken a very long time to arrange the spirit bodies in an orderly manner in the air. In the end, before it could completely form, Wang Ling had punched through it with one punch. But now wasn't the time to relax. Because in the process of defeating these guardian spirits just now, Wang Ling had realized that their structure wasn't as simple as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had imagined. Although these guardian spirits had been automatically activated by the Holy Array, there had to be a magic weapon behind them that controlled them. Wang Ling personally felt that, given the Master of Immortal Abode's fanaticism for spirit swords, the magic weapon that controlled the guardian spirits was probably a spirit sword. In other words, although these guardian spirits had been defeated for the time being, they hadn't truly died. As long as the spirit sword wasn't destroyed, when the sword was full of spirit energy again, the guardian spirits would make a comeback. Wang Ling directly told grenade-throwing Senior Immortal this speculation telepathically. I think Brother Ling's speculation is very reasonable. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded in sudden realization. The commotion just now had been a little big, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a little worried. We can't stay here for long. If we stay outside, we'll definitely be attacked again by the next round of guardian spirits. Brother Ling, we have to think of a way to sneak in first. The two of them were about to move out when the door of the palace up ahead suddenly opened, and two women wearing red veils and blue Daoist robes came out. Wang Ling immediately realized that these two people were probably from Immortal Abode. To be able to stay in Immortal Abode's main stronghold, their positions definitely weren't low, and their cultivation levels were also very high. At the very least, they were a little stronger than the Eastern Branch chief. Both women wore veils and looked to be about 24 or 25 years old, but they were old cultivators who had been cultivating for 1,000 years. Since most cultivators knew how to retain their looks, there was actually no point in judging someone's age from their appearance. The most common way to judge an aura was to sense it with one's spiritual senses, and determine one's cultivation level from the intensity of the aura. Wang Ling's 6 senses were sharp. As soon as these two female cultivators appeared, he had already sensed that they were about 2,600 years old. They were certainly stronger than the Eastern Branch chief, but they weren't worthy of the title of perfected person, and their talent indeed couldn't be considered good. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's cultivation level was exactly 2,000 years. If Wang Ling gave him another 300 years to cultivate, he would have more than enough time to become a perfected person. The two red-veiled women stared at Wang Ling for a while, and one of them, who obviously had an internet celebrity face, frowned and said, "The intruders that Master was talking about are the two of you, right?" The other oval-faced female cultivator on the side reminded her, "Sister Beauty, be careful, the guardian spirits are at least itinerant immortal level, and they definitely have some tricks up their sleeves." Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal were both blank. Beauty. Was that a Daoist name? It felt a little weird. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a little curious, and looked at the internet celebrity face. "Beauty, is that your Daoist name? Is there a problem?" The female cultivator with the internet celebrity face snorted. "Let me tell you, I'm called Beauty, and the one standing next to me is my little sister, Discount. If you dare say we aren't beautiful, I'll break all 3 of your legs." TCH, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt a slight chill in his crotch. Wang Ling carefully looked these two female cultivators up and down. He didn't know if it was because his sense of beauty had deteriorated, or if there were too many faces like this on the internet nowadays. He just felt that these two female cultivators really weren't very good looking. Their faces weren't as fair as Jinka's, their hair wasn't as black as Grenade-throwing's, and their legs weren't as long as Fang Xing's. Of course, they weren't completely worthless. Chapter 287. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought these two female cultivators were pretty weird. He took out his phone to take a few photos, but as soon as the phone's camera flashed, the two female cultivators turned pale with shock. One of the female cultivators with the face of an internet celebrity immediately covered her face. What kind of hidden weapon is this?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was stunned. Although there were still a lot of old seniors in the cultivation circle who clung to dogma and refused to use modern technology, they still knew what a phone was. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal simply flipped the phone over and showed the two female cultivators the photo he had just taken. The female cultivator with the face of an internet celebrity was shocked by her own appearance. "What kind of magic treasure is this? It can actually save images." The oval-faced female cultivator next to her also had an amazed expression on her face. "Sister Beautiful, look. Your skin seems to be a lot more delicate in this magic treasure. This magic treasure also has the effect of retaining your looks." This development made Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sweat. That was just the phone's built-in skin polishing function. It was just a phone, but these two female cultivators were stupefied for a long time. After a full 2 minutes, the oval-faced female cultivator said in a low voice, "Well, Sister Beautiful, could this magic treasure be the modern technology they were talking about?" "It should be." The female cultivator with the face of an internet celebrity nodded very seriously. Are you really a senior member of Immortal Mansion? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was starting to doubt their identities a little. Even if they were strong, they shouldn't be this ignorant about modern technology. How long had it been since the Spirit Energy Information era? We were sent here when we were very young, and we've never left. This is also a rule of our sect. Inner sect disciples must cut off all contact with the outside world. I only heard the word technology when people from the outer sect came to the headquarters to report on the situation, the oval-faced female cultivator replied. It was a very short explanation, but it was actually a long story. It was only later that Wang Ling, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, and the others learned that Immortal Mansion's inner sect disciples were all women with relatively good talent. Like child brides, they were selected by Immortal Mansion at a young age and sent to Immortal Mansion after their parents signed off on them as guardians. Every day, they had to recite scriptures designated by Immortal Mansion, and if they couldn't, they would be punished with a dragon whip or a ruler. In addition, they also had to undergo special training in cultivation. Every year, there were people who died during the Immortal Mansion's training, and only those who survived could truly become inner sect disciples. The difference was that Immortal Mansion's inner sect disciples didn't need to cultivate the Panwu Immortal technique, but at the same time, they couldn't come into contact with technology from the outside world. Most importantly, Immortal Mansion's inner sect disciples were all female. At this moment, for the two female disciples in the village who had just connected to the internet, the temptation of a mobile phone could be said to be quite great, completely not inferior to a first-grade magic treasure. If I gave you this phone, would you be willing to help us slip through? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked as he bared his white teeth symbolically. Are you kidding me? The female cultivator with the face of an internet celebrity snorted. As long as we kill you, won't everything on your body be ours? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal kept smiling. Is there no room for negotiation? No. The two female cultivators waved their hands. All right, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed and turned to look at Wang Ling. Brother Ling, hurry up and pour these two aunties a cup of cappuccino. Who are you calling aunties? The two female cultivators were furious. In the next moment, they looked like they were going to rush over. Unfortunately, before the two of them could get close, Wang Ling had already made the first move. There were two muffled bam-bam sounds. In an instant, the two female cultivators' faces were directly smashed by Wang Ling's friendly face-shattering fist, and they fell to the ground, bleeding from all orifices. Wang Ling blew at his smoking fist and sighed in his heart. They were too weak. AI, why did you do this? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal bent down to check their breathing, and only breathed a sigh of relief when he found that they weren't dead. Fortunately, although they hadn't spoken much just now, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt that the inner sect disciples of Immortal Mansion were all victims. They had been sent here from a young age to be trained to be one in a million killing machines. It wasn't easy for them to survive. Nowadays, there was a perpetrator for every grievance, and a debtor for every debt. Whoever had started this ill-fated relationship would be the one to end it. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked, Brother Ling, can you see if you can read their memories and find the location of the Master of Immortal Mansion? Wang Ling shook his head. He had already searched the area, but hadn't found any useful clues. Although these two were inner sect disciples of Immortal Mansion, their ranks were still too low. Jinka's aura had disappeared not long after Wang Ling had found Sanyuan Road. Wang Ling guessed that the Master of Immortal Mansion had probably used some method or magic treasure to hide Jinka's aura. At this point, Wang Ling wouldn't be surprised if the Master of Immortal Mansion took out an ancient godly weapon. After all, from the very beginning, the Master of Immortal Mansion had been a very troublesome enemy. Looks like I'll have to find a way to sneak in and find someone with a higher rank. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rubbed his chin as his thoughts spun endlessly. Then, he stared at the two corpses of the female cultivators on the ground, and his eyes suddenly lit up. This look. Wang Ling had a bad feeling about it. Brother Ling, come and help me. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal dragged the two of them into the palace. This was the exclusive palace of the two sisters, Beauty and Discount. Apart from them, there was no one else. A moment later, Wang Ling looked at him and bowed to the two female cultivators lying on the ground. My apologies, fellow Taoists. Then, he actually started to directly take off his clothes. Wang Ling was utterly flabbergasted. In broad daylight, the Grand Great Death-courting senior of the cultivation circle was actually plotting against two women. Could it be that he had eaten too much broccoli and wanted to start eating meat? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had just taken off one of the female cultivator's belts when he felt Wang Ling's burning gaze on him. He couldn't help raising his head and sighing. Brother Ling, we've known each other for so long, do you think I'm the kind of person who would take advantage of others? Wang Ling, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked as if he had discovered a whole new world just by undoing the belt around his waist. This is the first time I've realized that women's Taoist robes even have built-in bras. Brother Ling, do you know how to take them off? Wang Ling was silent. After studying it for a full 5 minutes, the white-robed young man finally figured out the internal structure of the female Taoist robe. He had never thought that the inlaid bra strap of the Taoist robe was actually set with a talisman, and only the two female cultivators could undo it with their own fingers. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had to pose for the two female cultivators for a long time before he was able to turn their hands over and undo their clothes. Success. After successfully taking off one Taoist robe, the young man in white looked as if he had obtained a priceless treasure. Then, he directly tossed the other one into Wang Ling's hands. Brother Ling, catch. This one is for you. After saying that, he started to take off the second female cultivator's clothes. Wang Ling. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, don't just stand there, quickly put them on. We'll sneak in as women. Chapter 288. Wang Ling changed his clothes in the palace of the two old aunties, Beauty and Discount. Because these two female cultivators had been cut off from the outside world, even the mirrors in the palace were bronze mirrors. Wang Ling just stood in front of the mirror and glanced at it out of the corner of his eye, and he instantly felt the urge to die. He absolutely couldn't let anyone else see this scene. Wonderful. Wonderful. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal exclaimed as he clapped his hands. Brother Ling, this is the first time I've realized that you're actually so cute. The young man in white never expected Wang Ling to be wearing this azure Taoist robe and the red gauze the two female cultivators used to cover their faces to actually fit him so well. He wanted to take out his phone to take a photo, but before he could do so, Wang Ling glanced at it out of the corner of his eye, and the phone instantly crashed. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression froze, and a look of pity immediately appeared on his face. A picture of Ling Jinren in female clothing was something that could only be encountered by chance, and could only be kept as a collection. It might become priceless in the future. Unfortunately, he had the heart, but he didn't have the guts. He had just wanted to take out his phone to check the time. It really had just been to check the time. In the end, such a small movement had completely ruined his phone. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed in his heart and took out the entire phone from his pocket. He only took out the SIM card and memory card. I just bought this phone. Wang Ling looked at the length of the phone. This was a new Xingli brand phone, and the body alone was 30 centimeters long. Then, the young man in white threw the ruined phone at the two female cultivators on the ground. Sorry for the offense. Although this phone is already ruined, it might still work if you fix it. Even if it can't be fixed, it's still better than cucumbers. Wang Ling, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Brother Ling, we should be able to sneak in now, but why do I feel like we still owe something? Saying this, the young man in white turned his gaze to the pile of fruit on the tribute table in the palace. With a crooked finger, He grabbed 2 apples and stuffed them into his chest, then turned his head to look at Wang Ling. "Brother Ling, do you want some?" "Wang Ling. Go to hell." At the same time, in the underground palace, the red-clothed Daoist frowned slightly. "Have you located all the intruders?" Immortal Mansion's Daoist robes were all made with special materials, and these materials just happened to act as verification codes. After an outsider invaded, they could use the power of the holy ice crystal formation to lock onto the unfamiliar aura and quickly find the intruder's location. "I've just locked onto the general location." "But..." the Eastern Branch chief replied. "But what?" "The number of people locating the location seems to have decreased." The Eastern Branch chief raised his sleeves. Spiritual light shone from beneath his sleeves, and a few images were projected in the void. "Prefecture Master, look. These are the images that the Holy Array has locked onto. They are all in different positions." The female cultivator's Daoist name was Cailian. The one with the gourd on his back is the immortal Toya who's been the talk of the circle these days. "Yes, I know those two," said the red-clothed Daoist. "As for the other 3, one of them is the owner of Fatty Luo's hardware store, Luo Chuang, whom we set up a trap for but failed to capture. The other one is the one who controls the godly thunder inheritance, Lightning Dharmaraja. The last one." The Eastern Branch chief shook his head as he looked at the images. "I don't recognize this person. We're still sending people to verify his identity." "You said there were too few people?" "Yes, the Lord of Hell is indeed too few." The Eastern Branch chief said, "These people are all working around that great death-courting senior, and rumor has it that there's a person by his side called Ling Jinren, who is the owner of this peachwood sword. Hee, that's a little interesting. These 2 should be the trickiest people to deal with on this trip. But these are all small problems." The red-clothed Daoist narrowed his eyes and looked at the Eastern Branch chief. "Now, I've found the most suitable sword spirit to act as the soul of the sword. However, to create a peerless godly sword, whether it's the internal sword spirit, the external sword body, or even the external appearance, they all have to be number 1. I need to find someone who's skilled in refining weapons, and based on the heavenly materials sword that I've already created, I'll do the final fusion." The Eastern Branch chief, Prefecture Master, what do you mean? The red-clothed Daoist smiled slightly. "Before they break in here, I want you to catch that Fatty Luo and bring him here." After entering the space wall, Fatty Luo and Dharmaraja happened to be in the same group, and as soon as they landed, they felt the Array Guardian spirit erupt. "This should be the power of some kind of magic weapon. I'm guessing it's a spirit sword." With the power of the Holy Array, the spirit body summoned by the spirit sword can be integrated into an Array Guardian spirit. With just a glance, Fatty Luo already had a guess in his heart. Staring in the direction of the Array Guardian spirit, he used his spiritual senses to sense its aura. "This is Ling Jinren's aura." "Then should we go meet up with Ling Jinren and the others first?" asked Dharmaraja. Fatty Luo analyzed, "There's no hurry. I'm guessing that these Array Guardian spirits will all be destroyed soon. Our top priority now is to find a way to hide ourselves. This holy array isn't ordinary. I'm guessing that Immortal Mansion should be able to use it to search for auras and find intruders." It could only be said that Fatty Luo was indeed Fatty Luo. He was much more vigilant than ordinary people when it came to these things. Fatty Luo's flirtatious history as a grave robber wasn't for nothing. Even though he was big, he was a lot more meticulous. The two of them entered the palace complex on Sanyuan Road, found an entrance, and went in. Immortal Mansion's palace complex extended in all directions, and at this time, Immortal Mansion had already issued an order to capture intruders. As the two of them moved forward, they could sense a vast number of Immortal Mansion disciples loitering around. Dharmaraja's scalp went numb. "Are there any other traps here?" "This isn't a tomb. But of course, we can't rule out the possibility of traps, said Fatty Luo. Then should we light a candle in a corner and chant, seek dragons, divide gold, and look at the coiled mountains? Dharmaraja asked. Fatty Luo, the two of them hid in this narrow entrance, which was relatively hard to find. After a while, Dharmaraja frowned. Why are there only female disciples in this immortal mansion? This gave Fatty Luo an idea. Dharmaraja, did you notice that these female disciples of Immortal Mansion are openly walking around outside, while the array guardian spirits are still focused on attacking Lingjinren? I think that the Daoist robes these female disciples are wearing should be a marker for the holy array to lock onto intruders. Dharmaraja, so, Brother Luo, what do you mean? Fatty Luo answered truthfully, I think we can dress up as women. Dharmaraja, Brother Luo, although your idea is very good, are you sure these Daoist robes are our models? Chapter 289. Daoist robes were different from ordinary clothes. They had very good stretchability and extensibility, and could be worn as long as you squeezed them a little. In Fatty Luo's view, they were like a girl's breasts, they would always be there if you squeezed them a little. Dharmaraja used his innate lightning to knock out two female cultivators who were passing by and dragged them into an alley. He found a secluded spot and laid the two female cultivators flat on the ground. Then, he took off their clothes. It's so tight, Brother Luo, my chest feels so tight. I can't breathe. Dharmaraja felt like the blue Daoist robe was wrapped tightly around him like a dumpling, and it was very uncomfortable whether it was his chest or his buttocks. Fatty Luo's situation wasn't much better than Dharmaraja's. If you feel like you can't breathe, use the turtle breathing spell. Can we do it like this? Fatty Luo was silent for a while. I don't know, but at least after we change our clothes, we won't be tracked by the holy array. Now we can think of a way to meet up with Lingjinren and the others, Fatty Luo said. If we run into anyone on the way, I'll have to trouble Brother Dharmaraja to knock them out. Before we find the Master of Immortal Mansion, we should avoid fighting and conserve our strength. Lord Jinka should be fine, right? I can't say for now. Fatty Luo's first impression was that the Eastern Branch Chief's spirit-subduing flag hadn't been able to restrain Jinka. All of this had just been a game of chess for Lingjinren to lure out the Master of Immortal Mansion. But after witnessing the legendary Ice Crystal Holy Array, Fatty Luo had a deeper understanding of Immortal Mansion's heritage. Perhaps this Master of Immortal Mansion had other tricks up his sleeve. To tell the truth, Fatty Luo was a little worried. If Lord Jinka is in his complete form, there's nothing to be afraid of at all. But the problem is that he doesn't have a scabbard, and only has a protective layer of sword chi that automatically condenses around him. But from another perspective, since Lingjinren is sending Lord Jinka to lure the snake out of its hole, I think he must be confident. After Fatty Luo finished speaking, he looked up at the sky. The sky was already completely dark at this time. He could feel the 12 Stars Palace's array guardian spirits, which had been destroyed earlier, reforming. I wonder how Immortal Toya, Lingjinren and Brother Fong Xing are doing. Fatty Luo looked at the sky with a profound look in his eyes. Not everyone could withstand the repeated attacks of the 12 Astral Palace's array guardian spirits. When the next wave of guardian spirits reformed, they would definitely find the other invaders and kill them. Previously, whether it was Fatty Luo or the others, they had all thought that this trip would be relatively easy. But after entering Immortal Mansion's stronghold, they deeply felt the dangers of Immortal Mansion. Whether he could survive or not, it all depended on his luck. On the other side, after changing into women's Daoist robes, Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal weren't in a hurry to leave. Instead, they searched the palaces of the two female cultivators, Beauty and Discount. When Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had come in through the space wall earlier, he had already noticed that the bricks and tiles used to build the palaces here weren't ordinary. they were filled with large amounts of spirit energy and had the power to repair themselves. Bricks with self-recovery ability, what kind of concept was that? This was equivalent to hiding a Dharmaraja in each brick, and this kind of self-recovery method was even more convenient than Dharmaraja using the godly thunder inheritance to re-weld the bricks together. Brother Ling, I feel that the Master of Immortal Mansion's identity isn't ordinary. The young man in white frowned and touched the bricks embedded in the stone pillars of the palace. After touching them for less than 3 seconds, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's hand drew back as if it had been electrocuted. Just now, he had actually sensed the fluctuations of nomological laws hidden in the bricks, which had wrapped around his finger like a viper and bitten him hard. It's actually the power of nomological laws. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was a little astonished. This meant that the Master of Immortal Mansion's strength was very likely at true immortal level. But he was a little puzzled. The nomological laws were set up too broadly, to the extent that each brick contained a trace of nomological laws. Even a true immortal might not be able to set them up like this. On the side, Wang Ling narrowed his eyes and couldn't help a drop of cold sweat trickling down his forehead. According to the normal list of realms, only those at true immortal level could freely use nomological laws. Of course, that didn't rule out the fact that there were a very small number of evildoers who had the strength to use nomological laws before they reached true immortal level. Comparatively speaking, however, true immortals could use nomological laws more smoothly. But to be able to spread the power of nomological laws out like a spider's web, even General Yi would find it difficult to do so. In Wang Ling's view, this power already surpassed that of true immortal, but this probably wasn't the Master of Immortal Mansion's own power. If he had this ability, Jinka would have changed owners long ago, and he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Wang Ling couldn't help sighing in his heart. Sure enough, resolving this matter as soon as possible was the right thing to do. If things dragged on like this, Immortal Mansion would be a ticking time bomb, and no one could say for sure when it would completely detonate. He told Grenade-throwing his thoughts telepathically. After hearing this, the young man in white was blank for a moment. Brother Ling, are you suspecting that there's another power behind Immortal Mansion? And that this power is directly related to the Master of Immortal Mansion? In fact, halfway through Wang Ling's words, the young man in white already had a guess in his heart. Staring at the stone pillar in front of him, he took a step back. Brother Ling, do you have a way to extract a brick from this stone pillar? Crack! With his eyes fixed on the stone pillar, Wang Ling's fingers instantly turned into claws and directly stuck into the cracks around the brick. Very quickly, just like Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had felt when he had been electrocuted, he felt the nomological power in the brick attack his fingertips. Wang Ling frowned as his fingertips felt numb and itchy. But it was very light, and actually a little comfortable. It was a little like a kissing fish in a hot spring nibbling at his fingertips. Wang Ling gripped the brick tightly in front of him, and then slowly increased the strength in his hand. He extracted the brick effortlessly. Let me see. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't dare touch the brick, and could only move closer to take a look. Very quickly, a look of sudden realization appeared on his face. Sure enough. Wang Ling examined the brick carefully. Apart from the nomological laws surging inside and the patterns on its surface, he didn't see anything unusual. But he felt that the patterns on the brick were a little familiar, as if he had seen them somewhere before. Brother Ling, do you know about familiars? Chapter 290. Wang Ling had long heard rumors about tamed demons, but he hadn't expected to encounter them so soon. With the mark left by the tamed demon on the brick as evidence, it could be said that the relationship between Immortal Mansion and the stone demon was now official. Summoning a tamed demon was also strictly prohibited under Huashuo Nation's laws. Like the rule that one was not allowed to inherit the Taoist tradition, it was also listed as a crime of anti-cultivation opportunism. But the tamed demon wasn't the key issue right now. How on earth did the master of Immortal Mansion know about the magic array used to summon them? This was something worth thinking about. While he was thinking, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought of something. There was a time when there was a widespread rumor on the market about a magic array used to summon a tamed demon. In the end, it was discovered that it was nothing more than a hoax. Some criminals disguised a transmission array as a magic array and tricked a lot of people into throwing antiques into it. Wong Ling, but a lot of people only know one thing about a magic array. Not all so-called antiques or relics can be used as a medium to summon a tamed demon. If you want to summon a tamed demon, the relic itself must contain a huge amount of residual spirit energy. For example, if Dharmaraja used the godly thunder inheritance as a medium in conjunction with the magic array, the summoning would definitely be successful, said Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Hearing this, Wong Ling nodded. After all, the godly thunder inheritance was a holy relic left behind by the Thunder clan. But when all is said and done, this is against the law. Even if he knew about the magic array, Dharmaraja wouldn't do such a thing. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sighed and spread his hands. Brother Ling, keep this brick for now. This brick alone is enough evidence to convict the master of Immortal Mansion of a serious crime. Furthermore, the viciousness of this matter has already surpassed that of that old devil. Wong Ling put the brick away with his vision screen, and the two of them were about to leave when they suddenly heard hurried footsteps in front of the two female cultivators' residence. Someone's here. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal hurriedly dragged the two female cultivators into the inner hall. A few seconds later, a female cultivator's voice came directly from the door. Beauty. Discount. Are you there? Elder Xing wants to summon us to discuss how to fight the invaders. Should I open the door, Brother Ling? While Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was hesitating, the female cultivator directly pushed the door open and entered. Wong Ling noticed that this female cultivator was wearing an orange Daoist robe and had squinting eyes. Based on the memories he had retrieved from the two female cultivators, he immediately knew that this person should be a true disciple of Immortal Mansion, a level higher than an inner sect disciple. The elder-level Daoist robes were gay purple. The slit-eyed female cultivator saw the two of them from a distance of 12 meters. At this moment, the white-clothed youth felt a buzzing sound in his head. What to do? Am I going to be exposed? After a few seconds of silence, the slit-eyed female cultivator exclaimed, Wow! Beautiful! Discount! How did you become like this? Did you go for plastic surgery behind Master's back? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, the slit-eyed female cultivator took a closer look, her gaze fixed on him as she walked up and down. You're offering a discount, aren't you? Look at your oval-shaped face. Wong Ling, the female cultivator looked at Wong Ling. Which face-shaping technician in the mansion did you get for your face? I think that your new dead fish eyes are quite unique. Not bad, not bad. Wong Ling. After that, the female cultivator looked at Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal again and rubbed her chin. Beautiful, did you get a height enhancement spell and breast implants? By the way, why is Senior Sister Yixian looking for us? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal used spirit energy to change the voice in his throat and imitated the online celebrity face from before to talk to the female cultivator in front of him. He looked at the nameplate on the female cultivator's waist, which was engraved with the name Yixian, and it was obvious that this was her Daoist name. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal recalled that the online celebrity face and the oval face also had nameplates on their waists, but they hadn't taken them off when they had changed their clothes. It looks like I'll have to bring my nameplate with me later, otherwise it'll definitely raise suspicions, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought. Although, it already looked quite suspicious now. Elder Xing wants to summon all the inner sect disciples. I'm here to inform them. This senior sister Yixian stared at the disguised Wong Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and said very seriously, This is a very serious matter, and Elder Xing wants you to go as soon as possible. Do you know the flat top of Yuntai Pavilion? Gather there in 10 minutes. Okay. Senior Sister Yuxian. Don't be late. The slit-eyed female cultivator smiled. With that said, the slit-eyed female cultivator went to inform the next palace. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at her receding figure and couldn't help sweating. Their faces had been so close just now, almost touching, but in the end, she hadn't realized that they were in disguise. It seemed that not all slit-eyed people were monsters. And slit-eyed people were really blind. Following the directions, Wang Ling and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal arrived at the flat top of Yuntai Pavilion 10 minutes later. Wang Ling didn't know the specific location of Yuntai Pavilion, but when this senior sister had come to the palace to inform them, he had left a spiritual mark on her. That senior sister Yuxian from before had already arrived and was standing at the very top of the flat top, followed by a female elder in a purple Daoist robe. At that moment, about 100 inner sect disciples had gathered on the flat top, and Wang Ling and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal were among them. The inner sect female disciples trembled in the face of the elder's wrath on the high platform. I did a head count just now, and realized that there are actually 2 people who haven't arrived yet. The purple-robed female elder took a deep breath and said, "The Manor Lord is furious." Furthermore, he suspects that there might already be spies among the inner sect disciples. It's very likely that those who sneaked into our immortal mansion are disguised as our disciples. But in such an urgent situation, there's actually someone who's late. Yuxian, what are you doing? The slit-eyed female cultivator trembled slightly at this stern interrogation. This disciple is incompetent. I'm willing to accept punishment, Shifu. Naturally, punishment is inevitable. The female elder snorted. Do you know who those 2 female disciples who haven't arrived yet are? Find them out for me. It's Little Bamboo and Little Chrysanthemum. I've clearly already informed them. The slit-eyed female cultivator was a little aggrieved. But they seem to have put on a little weight recently, so it might be a little difficult for them to climb the mountain. The elder in purple was blank. Put on a little weight. Not long after this elder in purple said this, Wang Ling and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw 2 plump female cultivators walk up the steps to the top of the flat roof. Because their Taoist robes were too small, their calves were directly exposed, and the hair on their calves fluttered in the cool breeze on the top of the flat roof. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal almost spat out a mouthful of blood at this scene. Chapter 291. Because of their overly frightening entrance, the 100 or so female cultivators, including the elder in purple, were dead silent for a full 3 minutes. This scene caused the purple-clothed female elder to suck in a breath of cold air. Then, she slightly tilted her head to look at the female cultivator beside her with squinted eyes. Art Courtyard. So this is Xiao Zhu and Xiao Zhu after they put on weight. Slit-eyed, she nodded seriously. That's right, Shifu. Then, the female elder in purple's face twitched for a long time. This was supposed to be a fish bamboo wool that had been soaked in hot pot and a mutated overlord flower. When Dharmaraja and Fatty Luo climbed the stairs, they could clearly sense the subtle atmosphere in the field. Brother Luo, we haven't been discovered, have we? The fervent gazes around them, especially from the elder in purple on the platform, were like those of Mitab Chan who had discovered a criminal, and there was a hint of ferocity in her eyes. Fatty Luo sighed softly. TSK. I thought our disguise was perfect. Wang Ling now understood that these 2 King Kong Barbies didn't know what B was at all. In fact, if Dharmaraja and Fatty Luo hadn't appeared here, Wang Ling felt that he and grenade-throwing would have been able to fish in troubled waters for a while. However, the moment these 2 King Kong Barbies appeared on the rooftop, their plan had already been disrupted. What kind of evildoer are you? Hurry up and surrender. The female elder in purple on the platform waved her sleeves, and two golden lights instantly streaked across her sleeves to form circles of runes that abruptly turned into a cage in the air and swiftly enveloped them. The slit-eyed female cultivator was shaken by her Shifu's vigorous attack. "Shifu, what are you doing? They're all sisters." The female elder in purple unceremoniously reached out and smacked her on the head. "Are you stupid?" the female elder sighed in her heart. She shouldn't have sent her to inform the inner sect, otherwise there wouldn't have been so much trouble. There was no doubt that Yixian's strength was the strongest among all the inner sanctum disciples here. Thus, she had been taken in as her direct disciple a long time ago. However, her only weakness was that she was a little stupid and blind. Given the urgency of the situation, the purple-clothed elder did not have the time to explain in detail. She only sighed and briefly said, "These two are intruders from the outside world. They must have changed into Xiao Zhu and Xiao Zhu's clothes to sneak in." At this point, the slit-eyed female cultivator called Yixian suddenly realized, so that's how it is. While he was explaining to Yixian, the battle was on the verge of breaking out. The female cultivators of Immortal Mansion's inner sect scattered to the sides to make space. They were well trained, and even though the battle had started instantly, they didn't panic in the slightest. The power of the godly thunder inheritance not only formed a lightning armor derived from the power of nature, it also stimulated Dharmaraja's muscles at the same time, making his body a lot more toned. At the same time, Fatty Luo stretched out his hand and took out a set of animal skin armor from his treasury, which he put on. Wang Ling had seen this animal skin armor before in Fatty Luo's metal shop. It was the heavenly demon pig skin armor that Fatty Luo was so proud of, also known as pig armor. Although Fatty Luo had already modified the spirit energy attribute on this pig skin armor, it still couldn't conceal the heavenly demon pig's demon king aura. As soon as the pig armor was taken out, the elder in purple on the stage already showed great interest. She was starting to understand why the Manor Lord was so interested in this boss Luo. "Brother Luo, be careful. This woman won't be easy to deal with." Dharmaraja frowned. Judging from their current overall combat strength, their strength was infinitely close to the late soul formation stage, which was more than enough to deal with this group of inner sect disciples. But this female elder in purple on the high stage wasn't easy to deal with, and they would need to work together to deal with her. However, this female elder in purple wasn't that stupid. Although Dharmaraja and Fatty Luo's current strength could crush any of the inner sect disciples present, if they combined their strength, it wouldn't be easy to deal with them either. At the moment, the greatest strength that these 100 or so inner sect disciples could unleash was by working together to set up an array. With the support of such a powerful array, even an itinerant immortal would find it hard to escape. At this thought, the female elder couldn't help looking excited. "Listen to my command. Set up the array." "Brother Ling, not good." Grenade-throwing senior immortal cried out in alarm. Almost at the same time that the female elder shouted for them to set up the array, Wang Ling stepped forward. In that instant, it was as if time had stopped. In the next moment, a large number of female disciples collapsed under the powerful spiritual pressure that they couldn't bear. The female elder on the high stage paled in shock. What was she seeing? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.